Mod Arcane, nice to have you on the cast once again. I want to start off with a big question revolving around Raids 4. Obviously, we're going to take a deep dive into that. But do you expect this raid to be the most fun raid of the four? I guess with the knowledge like with what the raid is shaping up to be at its current state, do you anticipate this being the most fun raid?
Gonna give a super designery answer and be like, well, fun is subjective, and to some people it will be and it won't be. But I mean, every update we're doing should be ideally the most fun of X. Like, fun should be ideally the number one priority of every update, and then everything else comes afterwards. But we know how hard that is. But yeah, I'm optimistic. I've learned a lot since TOA. Like, looking back, TOA, I think I'd only had like 2 or 3 bosses by then, and most of them were kind of like altering things like hard modes, and next obviously already existed, things like that. So going into TOA and obviously doing like 5 bosses, 6 bosses, or whatever, like that's a big difference, right? Yeah. But now, like I've done so many different PVM updates since TOA that I'm hoping I'm actually going to be able to put that to good use and nail it.
Yeah, and I feel like the reason I'm asking specifically about fun is I think over a certain amount of time after a raid has been released, or any sort of piece of content for that matter, you kind of start gauging what sort of the and again, fun is subjective, so there are people that are just going to love something that's completely masochistic or whatever else. But it feels like these days when we think of raids, there is a camp for all three, but I feel like there is this sort of general sentiment for those that have participated in TOB that TOB feels the most raid-like, and it feels the most fun and sort of smooth experience, whereas Chambers has some issues with just clunkiness, and it feels like the randomization can kind of throw people off. TOA has a bunch of modifiers and invocations and stuff, but it feels like TOB, again, for those that have experienced it, tend to say that that is the most complete sort of fun, simple experience that I feel like they can in their own way improve the experience or make it more challenging or whatever else. So does that like connect with how you see it?
Pretty much, yeah. And I think it's going to be really interesting because, like, from a really shallow perspective, I think a lot of people can look at Tob and say Tob's their favorite, and maybe Tob's their favorite just because they don't like puzzles, they don't like scouting, or they don't like puzzle rooms, skill rooms at Cox or something like that, right? And like that's just like the short of it. And I think there probably is a non-negligible amount of people in that camp. So this new raid coming out might just automatically meet the top 2 just because of that alone, right? It doesn't have those. However, you can like look deeper into it, right? And like go by boss, mechanic by mechanic, and identify like what does Tob do really well. I think Tob does a lot of that stuff really well, like the nitty gritty stuff really well. It feels really good to get good at Tob and like be efficient at Tob. Like there's so much to like learn, like micro optimizations and things like that. And I do think truly that's what creates the longevity of content and like makes it like fun long term. Like how cool mechanics are or how interesting they are generally wears off really quickly. At some point, it's just like, do you feel like you're getting better? Or do you feel like you're still being engaged in like good ways? While TOA doesn't really engage you in good ways once you understand all of the mechanics. It's just usually a big number, very punishing, etc. So I think that's going to be the tricky part. I think it's going to be really easy to win over all those players that just hate all like the chaff in the raid, like, and they just want a pure boss rush.
Yeah,
it's naturally going to do that, right? But to win over the players that like people feel like they're still learning stuff in Tob, like 500 KC in, that's going to be really hard. But that's where a lot of our focus is going. Try and make sure there are things like that.
Yeah,
which feels weird, right? Because I don't think Tob like really designed a lot of those in mind. They kind of just happened. And I'm not saying like, oh, Tob was just a fluke, but like I'm pretty sure I've talked to Kieran about like solo Cox, like solo Ulm, and like how they do that room was not intended, right? But if we just accidentally released some of the solo Ulm and it didn't have that kind of stuff, it would just be compared and it would just be worse, right? So we have to kind of put the extra effort in to like make sure these encounters do have all these bits.
It's so interesting thinking about how many unintended sort of updates, or I guess mechanics, sort of just emerge, and it ends up being how we see the content, like the reason why it's fun in the first place. I mean, because seriously, when I think of Chambers, the only thing I'm actually thinking of is the Ulm fight when I think of like the fun factor. And solo Olm is just so addicting. It's so freaking fun. I remember my first few hundred runs into it. I didn't even care if I got purples. I didn't care about the points. I just wanted to improve.
Just getting better, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super, super addicting. And I think trying to capture that again, one, it feels like lightning in a bottle, but there is clearly a science behind it. Like, I think with this game, the fact that it's tick based, you just, I mean, I'm sure it's very difficult to actually nail spot on, like, what are the I don't even know, like, the things that are actually making the content engaging long term. I think that's the other thing, is to recognize what is going to be fun long term, the sustainability of it. And I think you on was it the summer summit or winter summit of last year where you're talking about, it must have been RuneFest, actually. I think it was RuneFest of last year. You were talking about Yama, and you were trying to communicate that what had gone wrong potentially in Toa, and again, subjectively gone wrong, is that it can feel exhausting. The raid can feel exhausting, and the plan for Yama was to have something that does feel quite intimidating at first, but very quickly becomes something that can be sort of brain off and sort of go through it in ease. And again, if you want a chiller experience, if you wanted to sweat it, you can still sweat it. But I think that's a really good philosophy to take hold of. And I guess let me ask about Raids 4 in particular in regards to that. Do you think with Raids 4 trying to create something that feels like the biggest challenge in the game, whilst also holding on to like the not feeling exhausting, like how are you trying, or how are you even able to make that connection between both?
It is really difficult, yeah. And like I was even doing like a play test for one of the bosses today internally, and we are like, this boss should feel really hard in like this context. But equally we're like, we don't want it to feel exhausting. Like, do we think players will get accustomed to this mechanic like long term and it won't be exhausting, or is it actually going to just be really bad long term, right? And like we're constantly asking these questions, like just going like, is this like hard / punishing enough because it is like maybe like the final boss in the raid and it needs to like hit really hard and be difficult or whatever. But equally, is this too much and too frustrating? And like equally, is it something people will eventually get good at and like brain off? Like it can go as simple as Verzik P2, right? Like learning just a step back method. So many people struggle with that for like 10, 20, 30, 50 KC. And eventually it just becomes automatic, right? Like you learn the rhythm and then it's brain dead all of a sudden. It's like, is 50 KC enough? Is it too much? Is it too little? Is that how you measure difficulty? Like how many KC it is until certain mechanics become brain dead? Like maybe, right? Like a lot of these things you just need to keep in context. But on Yama particularly, we can go back to that bit in a second. But there was one point I wanted to expand on with Yama where I think Yama was like my experiment of trying to figure out like maybe how Ulm like worked. And like my theory at the time was Ulm is like almost entirely scripted. Like there's not really like too much variance in it, and like the player has so much control over the fight depending on their movement, where they are in the arena and stuff like that. And that's effectively what like the Enrage of Yama was trying to be, right? It was like, okay, well, the Enrage is almost entirely scripted. There's only very slight variance in it, and there's a lot of stuff like dynamic. There's a lot of dynamic elements within it. But if you memorize everything, theoretically, you can do some crazy stuff. And then we put the incentive on the shadow like boat crash attack, the bow tie, where obviously increases your attack speed by 1, like Mark of Darkness or whatever. And that gives you an incentive all of a sudden, right? So now it's like, and instead of you running away from it all, you want to stay near that. And because the entire fight is scripted, theoretically, people should be able to melee the boss and get better DPS. I had no idea what that would look like. I would never told you that I could predict it like RoboFly or any of the other crap that went on. But like, you provide the incentive of low melee defense. You provide the incentive of like this shadow crash attack increasing your action delay, and then you make the fight like majority scripted. The players will figure out a way. Is a reality, right? They'll figure out a way. So I don't even need to understand what the end product looks like. I just need to like almost provide like the setup for it, so to speak.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on just complexity in general? I feel like there is such a fine line between making something engaging and unique, but also not being, again, to use the word exhausting again, like it's just the complexity can be exhausting in some ways. So how do you try to nail that perfect line of complexity, especially with Raids 4 coming out?
Yeah, I don't think I have like a magic that it's just a lot of playtesting and just figuring out what feels right at the end of the day.
Mm.
And yeah, sometimes you come up with these really cool mechanic ideas, but then you realize you need to like lock the player down and control them and like do like 3 or 4 extra things. So it ends up being really complicated. And you're like, is this really worth it? This is really restrictive. They can only really solve the mechanic in one way. Is that a good mechanic then? Like maybe it's cool and flashy. And sometimes bosses just need that, right? They just need something a bit sexy.
Yeah.
But they're usually not the most interesting ones to engage with long term. Like the Meteor at Yama is great. It's not an interesting mechanic at all, but it's just a cool mechanic, right?
Yeah.
But if all the mechanics were like that, the fight would probably end up feeling quite shallow.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I also want to touch, while we're talking about Yama still, the stepping stone mechanic. So many people love it. I've never heard one person say that that's their least favorite part of the fight. I mean, that's just like the sort of iconic, like, this is a cool sort of pause to the fight that feels engaging. It feels satisfying. That's so important with the animations and just how quick it is. But do you consider that to be a sort of puzzle or anything? I just wonder, for Raids 4, if we're entirely getting rid
I
of
don't
puzzles.
consider that a puzzle.
Okay.
No. So it's not like I want other elements of the fight. Like the way I see the puzzle at Yama, or the puzzle at Yama, the agility at Yama is like, it's a nice way. It's a break for one. Like it's a nice little reprieve, which is good in its own right. But it like lets you like mentally segment the fights up a little bit, and it makes it kind of feel less long, because like going having a 6 minute fight instead of like a 3 minute into a pause into a 3 minute, I feel like the latter just like feels better. Like just that simple. And we always get loads of feedback on like boss length. Like I think people really liked Vardover's. It's like really short, snappy kills, and the Whisper is quite a long fight. And like that's just got an inherent negative, even though like theoretically it shouldn't matter too much in terms of gameplay, right? We balance drop rates around the length of the fight. Like we make sure like everything is in tune regardless of the length, right? But there is just something kind of satisfying about short fights that just end quickly. You see your KC go up, even if you need to get twice as much of it, right? Like it just feels better. And I think this is my current perspective on that problem, is that like a certain fight just lasting too long just starts to feel like a slog, even if it's the same amount of engagement. I don't know. It's very arbitrary.
Now, with Raids 4 coming out, we have seen in the blog posts that we're just going to basically have one difficulty. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because it's been a week since I actually looked at it. But we're going to have one difficulty on release. Is that correct? And it's going to be like the standard difficulty. And then a few weeks after release, that's when we're going to get the practice modes where you can go into individual boss rooms and kind of practice around. And one of the things I was discussing on Say More was, how is the practice going to look like? Is that a solo instance experience, or are you bringing in a team to practice a room?
It's not entirely decided, and yeah, everything you said is the current plan. In terms of how I'm currently imagining the practice mode working, is that imagine you can go up to the board and make a party like normal, and then when you like, and you can still like group up and everything with your friends, and then when you like go in, the party leader tries to start the raid, it would just bring up like a menu of like, what boss do you want to jump to, and then you would just press, with the first boss or whatever, jump to that, and then you would kill that boss, and then when you try and progress, it would either tell you, do you want to go again on the same boss, or do you want to progress to a different boss now, or do you want to leave, kind of deal, right? And it is a little bit fourth world breaky, and we can maybe add a bit of a thematic spin on it. Maybe it's a dream or some shit. That's usually the chi answer to all these things.
Yeah.
But that would generally be the goal, is that like, yeah, you can kind of just jump to a boss and practice it. Like, I do think, and we talked about this a little bit on Theorywise's podcast, and I do see this kind of stuff on Reddit all the time. But like, learning bosses and content in Old School is kind of shit. Like, as much as like I think the learning process is fun, it's like you die at Zora, and then like you appear in Lumbridge, and then you gotta like teleport to Zora, get all your gear, re-gear, go to the bank, redo your inventory, teleport back, and then you go again. Like, it's really, really tedious. And I think we're probably a far cry away from like getting rid of gravestones entirely. There's probably still some small things we can do. I know I made that change at Yama where you just respawn outside of his lair, and I think that just simplified quite a few steps and seemingly was quite appreciated. I don't know if Doom did that as well. I don't think it did. But this practice mode is effectively, in my mind, the raid equivalent. And on a bit more of a meta sense, if we don't do something like this, people are just going to create a simulator on a website anyway and just effectively do the same thing. And I would rather they just stay in the game, play in the game, if they want to have that kind of experience, than just going to a third-party website.
That is a great point. Yeah, I think, and it's so interesting sort of how the community has changed their perspective on things. I mean, I remember when Tournament Worlds were coming out and people were flipping out over the fact that people could, they could just practice Inferno for free. Like, what? And or, you know, with a T-bow, like you get a try with a T-bow, like that's crazy. Like this should not be allowed. But these days, yeah, it really feels like simulators have become very acceptable and everything else.
I think the community's like, I don't want to say less elitist, but like I think there's just a bit less passion towards these like very specific achievements anymore. And I think that's just kind of natural over time. Like competitiveness does just generally wane. Like the first couple of thousand people playing Iron Man, like all those achievements were so pristine and insane, right? But so many people have maxed accounts now. So many people have done Inferno. So many people have done Inferno in absolute ragged gear. Like that's not me. That's not me attempting to diminish anyone's achievement. They are still really good achievements, but in general, the wider player base just cares a little bit less about the individuals, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how I try and think of it. Maybe I'm off base there, right? But that's kind of how it seems, because yeah, that's why I've noticed as well. People generally just don't seem to kick up a fuss as much anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it would be the same if I feel like if you were to even, I'm not advocating for this, but if you were to remove the restrictions of just being able to go kill 6 Jads without having ever done the Inferno, I don't think anybody would care that deeply about it. I think it would like that update could go under the
significantly less so these days, at the very least, right?
It's just because like why can't somebody just practice 6 Jads or 3 Jads before going to the first? It just feels very silly and arbitrary to not. It's completely separate content to have that like sort of tied in. Like you can't go any further because I mean again like it still makes sense. So I'm not advocating that requirement needs to be like removed or anything. But I don't think anybody would have an uproaring over that. So it is interesting.
I think part of it as well is probably game modes have affected it quite a lot over the years. Like, say, RuneScape used to not really have game modes at all, right? But every time a league comes around now, or a Gridmaster, like, or a Deadman, like, you can just probably go Inferno, right? I don't actually know if Inferno is enabled in Deadman, but like, I'm assuming it is.
Yeah.
But like, you can just get those practice then anyway, and it's like if you're being able to get the practice then, like, why not in the main game? And if you're getting the main game, like etc. etc. That's probably like stuff like that just slowly erodes the competitiveness, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, this is I'm gonna try to figure out how to word this question, but is there any content that you have developed in the past where there are clear things where like you wish you could change it, or like, man, like if this was just slightly tweaked, this would have been such a banger with all of the tools I have now and all the knowledge I know now of like how to make things fun? Are there any instances of that in past content that you look at and that are just like, man, I really wish I just had the time to go in there and fix all that up? Is there anything that pops out in your mind when I ask that?
Entirety of Nex? Does that count?
Okay, Nex is a whole can of worms if we're going to jump into
yeah, I talked about that on a Theory Rises podcast quite a lot, and it talked about like how it came to be and stuff, but as like a bit of a TLDR, it's like the direction at the time was very much we want to kind of preserve it and we want to keep the nostalgia for the people that really liked Nex back then, and like God Wars has felt like a bit of a sacred ground in that regard. I think we did succeed at that, and I have had a lot of praise from a lot of individual players, like anecdotally, that they really like Nex and they really like how it's brought over and everything. But I do think the wider audience, the wider player base, don't really enjoy it, right? Yeah. And obviously, drop race is part of it. Like the fact that you need Casey is part of it. The fact the mechanics are a bit like dated and like not that engaging. The fact that she just beats the shit out of you is part of it. Like there's so much to it, right? But I do wish a second pass in Nex would be good.
Yeah. Do you suspect that in the next 5 years there'll be any touches to it, or does it feel like it's good enough, it'll pass, and we just got to move on to other things? Like, what is being talked about on the team?
I don't know. Like at the end of the day, we're a player run game first, right? Mm-hmm. So if loads of people really like we're passionate about is wanting to change Nex or them wanting to change Nex, like I'm sure we would make time for it. Reality, but obviously time is finite. Like, do we make a brand new boss, or do we rework next? I think most people would prefer us just made something new most of the time. So that's kind of why we do it. We usually rework old stuff because it's like maybe a bit cheaper and stuff as well. So that's kind of something that can factor into it. But I do think next would probably warrant quite a big pass, not just a bit of touches up to them previously.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A small thing.
Yeah.
I've got two small things on Yama and Muspah. Muspah, I quite like NPCs bosses combat where they're like faster depending on like how good you are. And I think Muspah and like demonic gorillas and tormented demons, they kind of have that, and like some other bosses as well, where like obviously the more damage you do, the faster it changes, and that faster your gameplay kind of reacts to it. I genuinely like that concept. However, I feel like it probably needs something figuring out, like a bit of an upper limit. Because I do think Muspah is generally fine for most people. You can one style it with both. If you've not got like great gear, which it's not a super end game boss, so you're intended to generally not. But if you have like best in slot gear doing Muspah, like I've heard it's actually miserable because like your gear's doing like 6-way swaps like every two attacks. Because like you're just swapping it, and like it probably needs something like maybe it just needs a time cooldown. Like yeah, it can't swap more than every like 3-4 basic attacks or something. Like I don't know. But that's something I kind of regret, where like it kind of scales badly into endgame in terms of like enjoyment. Yama one, unless you wanted to respond.
Well, let me touch on the Muspah. So what would be the solution? Is it just saying, okay, for a minimum, Muspah must attack 3 times once it's switched styles, and then it's also tracking how much damage you
player, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's like you need to have attacked the boss at least 4 times and done enough damage to transition.
I see.
Well, right now it's just damage transition, right?
Yeah.
That's a change we can still make. Like I'm all up for that, and that'd be very, very easy. And yeah, I think that's something that's been on my mind.
And before you move on to Yama as well, with Muspah, I mean, one of the coolest things is that sort of skip you can do with the smite skip.
Yeah.
Now, was that intended at all? Did you notice it after the fact and realize?
It's such a bug. But I was like, that's cool, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think it's especially cool because it's not just a guarantee. You can't just get it every time. You got to get the good hits.
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah. But what are your, because that feels incredibly satisfying when you do get it. And it feels like it can only really be done with like a Tebow or, you know, something that's going to be somewhat consistent. I guess you could do it with like ruby bolts, or actually not even rubies because it's too low of health at that point. But you'd have to, it's very hard to get it basically to get that. But when it does, it feels amazing. And I wonder, is there something psychologically that feels better about it not being a guarantee? Or I'm trying to imagine a different boss that had a very, very similar mechanic that is a guarantee if you perform it well. Do you think that that would ultimately be more frustrating? Because it feels like with Muspah, if I don't get the skip, I'm not beating myself up about it because I just understand it's RNG. But if it was absolutely 100% able to be skipped every time, I'd feel like total shit every time I don't get the skip because it's just such a big weight to get the smite skip.
It's like player agency, right? Like it's almost like on your character's fault rather than the game just arbitrarily saying no. Even though it technically is the game arbitrarily saying no, your random number generator just failed, right?
Yeah.
But like it feels like more on the player character and you can influence it. Like I think frustration generally comes down to a lack of agency on the player. Like what can I do to influence it? And on Muspah, you can do things, right? You can range pot, you can have a higher range level, you can get better gear, better weapons. Like there's a lot of things you can do. Ultimately, it's still going to be RNG, but at least you have a lot of agency in that.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, let me pull this up. I think this is coming from, and I will let you touch on Yama, but I'm going to continue on actually with this Muspah thing a little bit more. What is the weapon that's coming out that helps finalize bosses? Like if they're down below a certain HP, it does 70% guarantee.
I can't remember his name, but yeah, is it like the bludgeon or something?
Is that the Crimson Bludgeon? Is that the like flail?
Potentially, weapon? It's either that one or the other one.
Let me see. I think it is that. Let me just pull up Blood Moon Rise's blog just so other people can see.
But yeah, it's a cool concept. Rice really cooked on that one. But just the concept of being able to have effectively 100% accuracy in some situations that you can influence.
Yeah. So this I'm. Oh wait, actually no. This is the Crimson Bludgeon. I'm sorry. This is actually the one that does the 4 hits.
That's the 50-50.
So what's the other thing I'm thinking of? whatever it is.
I don't remember his name, but it is a special.
Yeah. There's some weapon that's doing that. But one of the things that got me kind of thinking was, we're trying to come out with these sort of side upgrades. So not just directly like, here's a more powerful weapon. We're trying to get those niches in. And I'm just thinking, without trying to go into any detail, imagine a weapon that really could sort of be tamed for like, you can sort of choose when it does a little bit less damage, but it's in the background, it's sort of charging up for a moment in the battle where you want consistent high damage. So you're kind of like planning out your attacks by sort of using less energy with the weapon, and then it can kind of store up something. And I just want
a really cool idea.
Yeah, like for the future, if there was some sort of smite phase, you can plan out the fight beforehand to get as much damage as you can in this little section, and who knows how that'd be implemented. I'm not trying to claim I'd know how to implement something like that, but just niche weapons like that. And I love this finalizing weapon. So I
will write that down, because I do think that's a cool concept for a weapon, just like neutering your damage for a period of time to then effectively guarantee something later on.
Yeah,
sounds like it would have some cool niche use cases.
It really could. I love this sort of finalizing weapon. Let me find where it is, and then I know I'm going all over the place. I really want you to touch on Yama. So let me actually ask you, would you want to move on to Yama, or can we briefly touch on this sort of finalizing?
The Yama thing's not that interesting. It was only a small point, so we can move on.
Okay. Well, let me ask about this sort of finalizing weapon. What is this thing? Why am I missing? Oh, here it is. New spec weapon. This is it. It's up here. It is. Oh, it's literally just called new spec weapon. I don't even think it has a name yet. Unless yeah, it just says new spec weapon. So this is the one where it says special attack. Seeking Lunge always deals 70% of maximum damage on a successful hit. If a monster has less HP than this attack would deal, this attack always rolls 70% of its maximum accuracy roll, which means, wait, 70% of its maximum accuracy roll. Wait, maybe I was thinking that was damage roll, or 70% of its maximum damage.
I think the concept is like, imagine if the NPC has technically a 20k defense roll with a combination of its stats, and your weapon is like a 40k defense roll. It would take 70% of that 40k, and if that's higher than the NPC's defense, which in this example that I gave would be true, then you're guaranteed to hit.
Okay. Interesting. So how did this get conceived of?
Oh no, it's just Mod Rice's brain cooking up.
Okay. I was wondering if you had any influence on this at all. Okay. Do you imagine this being good in any places where you wouldn't normally just bring a different weapon? Because this is also a special attack. So I'm just wondering, like, it's cool to have a weapon that could just passively do that, but if it's a special attack that needs to actually be spec'd with, do you feel like this is going to outclass something like Dragon Claws or any other super, super highly accurate thing that you could just use at the very end of a battle?
I think that's kind of the goal, that there should be use cases for it, right? There'll be some situations where that guaranteed finisher is better than actually just raw DPS, right? Like Scythe and Claws and Voidwaker are really like consistent, but this will be more consistent. But obviously it only works on some NPCs. If the NPC's got too high defense, then Claws is going to end up better, right? Or Voidwaker.
Yeah.
So that's theoretically the niche she's trying to fit in, right? Like at the end of the day, it's not a raid. So it's not going to be a raid level reward.
That makes sense.
Like Claws obviously is raid level. So whether it fits perfectly in the meta or not from where it's coming from is a very valid question that I'm sure will get evaluated over time. But that's theoretically what it's supposed to be.
Because this is the idea behind this weapon is something I've been wanting for a while, where I think of something like a Crystal Halley or any sort of halberd that has that attack. I mean, I think the Crystal Halberd in particular, I feel like there's been so many situations where you really just want to finish off a boss. You don't want to keep having it be 3 HP and then you hit 2 zeros in a row. I mean, if there was some sort of ability with a super slow attacking weapon, I think that's the whole theory behind it, is to have something like a Crystal Halley that's super, super slow. You would hate to have to attack right after using this weapon. But if it had such insane accuracy, the lower a boss's HP gets, then you can almost like suspect, okay, like this boss is at 40 HP left. I got a Crystal Halley spec. Let me just go to town on this guy and finish him off. And it's just the two massive swipes that are very, very highly accurate. I think something like that. And I think this weapon's kind
I
of
think
capturing that a little bit.
when it's a special attack, it's a lot safer, but I think I actually have had concepts like that for regular weapons. And my worry about it when it's like not a spec weapon is like, does this just end up being used absolutely everywhere, right? Like, regardless of
Yep.
like style, like you're using a scythe, you're using T-bow, you're using claws, like regardless of situation, like is the optimal play now to swap into this weapon to finish it off? Like in general, having single items that are now effectively adding an extra couple of clicks to the
Mm-hmm.
entirety of combat, very scary, right? Very, very intimidating. But when you add like niches on it, special attacks, it only works with certain accuracy rolls, maybe it only works on some styles, etc., etc. That's where it starts to feel more appropriate. That now it's not as encompassing.
That,
The prayers had a lot of controversy on that. We've had armor sets that have controversy on that. Yeah, that's always the awkward part about things like
yeah. Actually, the fact that you can just easily sort of explain, like, okay, the reason this is because that it might have these damaging effects. Do you guys have like a spreadsheet of like when you're designing a weapon or a gear where you have to like go over a checklist of like, nope, can't be that, can't be that, can't be that because of like these reasons and like these reasons? I just wonder how many like blacklisted ideas have there been that you just always come up with, and then you look and you're like, oh no, that's the reason we can't do this, because it'll have these negative sort of like cascading
so
negative effects.
we do have a lot of stuff internally, a lot of documentation and stuff. I wouldn't say we've just got this like checklist or yes nos, because like nuance and context is just so important. Like there might be a situation where you can have it, right? Like what about a temporary game mode or something like that, an echo reward? Like maybe that's too obvious of an example, but context is always important. So as much as like in this example here, it probably isn't a good idea. Maybe there is a situation that someone comes up with where it is a good idea, but rewards are so incredibly iterative internally, and then obviously they get put in front of players, and they're always very iterative. Then it's very unlikely it gets through everyone without people realizing something, and if it does, we can always change it later.
Yeah.
Done that before.
Okay, I want to switch gears and talk about the NPC weaknesses that have. I mean, you guys did a massive overhaul of so many NPCs that now have significant weaknesses to elements and even the new range styles, heavy, light, and standard. What are your overall thoughts on this kind of system that's been implemented? Do you find that it adds more sort of breathing room to create new weapons and things and armor types and I don't know, elemental defenses and offense?
That's exactly the goal, right? It adds a bit of variety in gameplay, adds potential like systems that help reward space like bloom instead of like narrowing. That's just the goal, right? I don't think it's necessarily quite there yet, but things like this have to be slow and steady, and you sow the seeds, so to speak, allow it to be useful in a few years, etc.
Mm-hmm. And what, and like, I guess this is sort of like a branching off of the NPC weaknesses, but what about flat armor stuff? I feel like that's been sort of implemented with NPCs. Do you see there being any future with players having some sort of flat armor against, again, NPCs? I doubt it would be against players. This is a PvP. That would be a PvP conversation, but I guess just in PVM in general, would flat armor ever be
I really
something
like the
insane?
concept of flat armor on the player. I don't exactly know what it looks like, and we have the whole like I think damage reduction in general just has this like weird problem in RuneScape where the minute you just give players like actual damage reduction, whether that's percentage or flat, so Dins and Justy technically have it, so does Ellie. You really start encouraging like flicking a lot, like between hits. Like obviously very, very minor amounts of people bother like Ellie flicking in combat and stuff, right? Or flicking the entirety of the Justy armor set. It dins as a safety precaution to stop you from flicking it because it's just such a high amount from a single item, right? And the further you delve into that territory, I feel like you're basically just going to have to start putting a lot of arbitrary restrictions, right? Like maybe flat armor doesn't apply for a couple of ticks, or flat armor requires you to attack with the item equipped for it to then apply, right? So then you're not really swapping between Torva and the new flat armor gear or whatever. And maybe that's fine, and maybe that's acceptable. Maybe players will still be excited about that, but I'm sure we all know how like weird restrictions end up panning out often. not overly desirable. But conceptually, I just love the idea of flat armor, like on gear. Like the idea of getting like 4 or 5 flat armor, and now some bosses literally do 0 damage, 0 chip damage to you now. Like
Yeah.
conceptually, that's really cool. Like I think that's really cool reward space. But like the UX of it, I think is a bit finicky.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'm thinking of Justicure armor, for example. Justicure, I'm never wearing that. I will never wear that armor in practice because it's just, you're losing so much strength bonus. It's out of control. But if somehow Justicure had a -1 flat armor thing, like damage, like incoming damage per piece or something, and maybe there's a combo thing where it, adds another one, so basically everywhere you're going, everything's max hit has just lowered by 4 when I'm wearing this. There could be some potential, like you said, like there's places where some max hits are 4 and now it's just hitting a guaranteed 0 every time. And just, I think I'm just looking at Justicure in this department, and I feel like that alone would be enough in some situations for me to choose Justicure over, gaining fucking 4 max hits or 5 max hits or whatever it would be, not using the armor. But yeah, I know that's definitely a serious conversation, though. I think, like you're saying, the switches, the constant having to like switch on different armors for every single attack can get very exhausting.
That would be optimal thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're supposed to swap between like full Justy and Torva every time you attack to maximize your trips, like that would be really frustrating. So yeah, it's just thinking of a nice solution for that.
Yeah.
I think there are solutions to there that are out there. It's just whether the players will like them.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, and then again, talking about this range thing, I just need to bring this up because I feel like I'm going crazy with why this is still in the game. But why are ranged? I don't need to ask the why. I mean, it's just really just your thoughts on it, and do you think there will ever be a change to this? How, if you're using basically any short bow or any bow in general, there's always going to be an accurate and a defensive style that you can switch on to that just slows down your attack by a tick, which means just huge DPS loss. Now, again, there are situations where you would flick it on to accurate to maybe get an extra max hit potential, and for Vanguards, for example, I see people switching it on because there is an actual timing, or Zulrah, where Zulrah will go under and it's not going to matter. But in vast majority of cases, it is just beyond silly that the amount of DPS you lose switching to that style. And you do not see it with melee and mage. So you switch to defensive casting, it's not slowing you down. You switch to defensive melee, you're not slowing down by a tick. But ranged, for some reason, has that, and it's because of that rapid. I wonder, are we ever going to see any change to that?
I mean, yeah, I feel like it's probably just not been really considered as a priority because it's just like, what do you do with it? And is the game better than that? Like, I think my initial idea would be just delete rapid, and then you have accurate and long range, and accurate sometimes gives you a max hit. Is that just like a 1 max hit power creep across the entire game then? Do we not do the accurate thing and just make it so you're always on long range? Like, it's like the current system's fine. Is the game any better by changing it? I don't know, right? Like, I'm not sure what the answer is. Like, I think the ideal situation maybe is like thinking of something else that rapid would do.
Yeah.
Like maybe you get more accuracy on, like maybe you get the +3 strength on rapid, but you get +10 accuracy on accurate or something.
Yeah.
Well, like again, is that just an extra max hit for everyone compared to like the stats quo right now? For what gain? Like just not having to click a button or something? I don't know.
I mean,
like, it probably just doesn't do much.
Yeah. I mean, it really doesn't do much. Just how other styles don't really do much. I mean, I guess the only thing that would change it up is if there was some like bow that could be heavy and could be standard depending on the style. But I don't even think that's necessary. I mean, the idea I came out with was, it's very simple. It's kind of like what you were just saying, was just have accurate be additional accuracy without any of the damage. So again, that cannot just be a ranged level increase. It'd have to have some sort of accuracy wherever that's coded. And then the rapid just becomes aggressive style, and that gives you max hits without any additional accuracy. And then long range has neither the accuracy or the aggression or like the actual damage, but it does have that extra 2-tile range in some scenarios. And I think that would just be good. And then they all attack at the same speed. potentially there's some issues with like tick manipulation methods if you're trying to like have a bow on a certain speed and now it can't do it. But
This is exactly my point, right? Like you know, inevitably when we change this, there's gonna be like 200 people that come out of the woodwork just going like, I relied on this from a limited account build or some random skilling method that like no one really talks about. I'm like, oh god damn it.
Yeah.
Then you have to introduce like a setting or a special weapon for it. And
You're totally right.
And that's why it gets down prioritized, right? It's like there's not much benefit, and there's probably a can of worms waiting to be opened.
Yeah, it really just does feel silly. I think that's the biggest part. It's like
it is silly.
You're never not going to use rapid, and that just feels bizarre. But you know, I don't know. Maybe there's something charming about the game just being clunky, and we're just going to keep it for the next 10 years, and nobody's ever going to use it.
What are we doing about long range on T-Bow? Like, what are we doing about that?
That's a very weird thing because long range really does not do anything. The T-Bow going from long range to rapid is actually just a nothing burger. It's just that nothing.
Yeah,
is
all my
changing.
defense XP.
Yeah, except you're just losing however much DPS, 20% DPS, just with one click. It's very silly. Anyway, just needed to throw that out there. But one of the things I am very excited about is the potential for these range styles to actually have legitimate effect. I mean, people keep talking about the raids for mega rare. Like, what are we going to come out with? We already have the 3 styles. We got melee, magic, and range, but we still with range have these light and heavy options to go after. And I think, you know, heavy, if monsters across the game had legitimate hard weaknesses to like heavy stuff, and we're okay, this normal bow is really just not going to do the job. I feel like in many situations the differences between the actual like heavy and standard defenses are just so minimal it doesn't even matter. But I think if there were stronger cases of that.
Absolutely, right? Like that's exactly why we rolled that system out. Saw that potential. We saw how useful that would be for the future. The reality is it's just very hard to be super heavy-handed on old content, like rolling it out retroactively. Like we could have just gone like, yeah, okay, T-Bow just does like no damage on neck. Like it's just not an option anymore. And crossbows is better, right? Like we already did like shift that a little bit to kind of encourage crossbows more. But at the end of the day, T-Bow is still more than viable there. We could have been really heavy-handed, right? But obviously there would be pushback, especially if we're doing it on like 20 different balls.
That makes sense.
So it is just setting up the infrastructure for the future, so then we can start doing it more. It's just going to take time in reality, right? Like if we're releasing 2 or 3 bosses a year, and maybe one boss has a weakness to range, it's going to be a while till like it's a really good, like solid place. But at least that means we're progressing towards it, right? As opposed to at all. We didn't really have a way of making crossbows good without that. It's basically just possible. So yeah, I agree. I would love it if like they had a really solid use case. Elemental weaknesses like have a bit, but that was mainly like supplementary rather than like nerfing anything else. And mage is a lot more linear as well in terms of like what is actually good. Like if you take shadow out of the equation, like mage is obviously just a very lacking style. While range had a lot of options, a lot of really strong options as well.
Let's talk about this Jim's wet cloth that came out a little bit ago. Now I know you're not the skilling guy necessarily, but I thought that was a cool little implementation to have some sort of skilling vibe to create these armors, and you know you can get enough shards for it. And that's a separate conversation entirely. But now we're coming out with these skilling methods to Blood Moon Rises. I don't know how much you know about those. I don't know much other than just what the blogs have said. But it sounds like these cool skilling methods are coming out into the game that are we going to have like serious impacts to PVM. We're coming out with these new like arrows, whatever they were called. Let me see what they were called.
Seeker arrows.
Seeker arrows. Very, very OP, but very cool nonetheless. And it's just cool that they're kind of coming from skilling. So let me ask you a little bit about the skilling department. What are your overall thoughts on the state of skilling? Do you have any, I don't know, vision of what skilling sort of could be? I mean, we've seen amazing updates to skilling over the years, and I feel like some have to sort of catch on and we start understanding like what makes skilling actually fun rather than just a means to an end to max or get to the PVM.
I do have lots of thoughts around it. I'm not a skilling guy, like you said. Like I've done some skilling updates, obviously around it. I've got a max iron, so it's not like I'm ignorant or anything. But I've obviously just been put in the PVM room for the last 6 years now at Jagex and just like cranking out bosses after boss. Like that's my role. So yeah, I'm definitely not the person who's been spending like hour after hour of a working day like thinking about this kind of stuff. And I know that Mod Rice recently has been. He's been thinking about this stuff a lot. He's very passionate about this, and he's the one that's really trying to push this. Obviously, he did Jim's wet cloth. He's going to be working on most, if not all, of the skilling activities on Blue Moon, and he's cooking. Like he has a vision and he has a lot of ideas where he wants to take things. And I do think there's validity in the whole. We've not supported skilling like that much in terms of like genuinely trying to make it fun. It has been just a means to an end. As like a bit of a counterpoint to that, I do think even if we make skilling really fun, it probably is for the vast majority of players still going to just be a means to an end. So I do think most people share the goal as like maxing your account is the end goal.
Yeah.
And then once you max your account, like most people's motivation does wane. And PVMing is like a nice way of routing into your account to get efficient upgrades to maybe make some money to max or to get the resources to max, get various upgrades, right? And I do think we can do a better job on that with skilling, to like route more things in, have more interesting progression route, things like that. Yeah. But fundamentally, I don't think there's many people that are going to get like 99 woodcutting and carry on woodcutting because it's fun. Like it's just a reality, and like just like you're going to stop doing a boss once you get the drop you need, right? Yeah. It's just that we just keep pumping out more and more bosses, and bosses like feed into each other really well as well, right? Mm-hmm. Where like you can get a drop off Muspah and get a Venator bow, and that's useful like maybe a dozen places or something. It's harder to do that with skilling. Like the space for like desirable rewards, especially desirable rewards for skilling that you also care about post 99, is really, really narrow and challenging. And I do think we can open up that reward space. I just think again that's probably going to be quite a slow and like arduous thing to like get going. But we're thinking about it and we're trying, and we're seeing like if there is like a lot of value there. And like opening that up and expanding it, because we do know there's a large audience of people that just really like skilling and that they prefer that over PVM. So we do want to focus on that, but I'm not overly convinced it's going to get even close to like what PVM's like. Yeah. Obviously, to a certain point of that, that's kind of inevitable. We've spent like almost a decade focusing on PVM, and we're not going to stop. It's going to be hard to catch up. It's a reality, right? Even if we switched focus massively. Yeah. But I do think combat is probably just a more interesting and wide system that allows for a lot more like of this like variety and desirability and reward space. Skilling individually generally isn't. And the interesting parts of skilling is like generally the routing between the skills, really.
No, that's a good point. And we often see with skillers, I mean, they're generally the players that don't want to have to learn something exhausting. They just want to chill out after work and fish and see number go up rather than having to actually engage with something that's having to use your brain.
That is a bit of a juxtaposition as well, right? Yeah. Like we want to create something fun. Fun usually means at least somewhat engaging. And if it's engaging, it's not AFK bar fishing. And like, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's just a pretty of a fundamental problem there. But for those people that do want to engage a little bit, I do firmly believe, even for the people that really hate the concept of it, if you learn Sepulchre, you'll have an absolute blast.
Yeah.
Like, fantastic content. It's just that obviously there is frustration learning it, and when 99% of your 2,000 hour maxing grind is AFK and Blood Runes, you probably aren't used to the failure that Sepulchre puts in front of you. So it's very jarring. I don't blame people feeling that frustration, but I firmly believe if you push through it, you would enjoy it.
Yeah, it's true. I think with so much of skilling, even if there were no drastic changes made, I think the big key thing is just making things feel good. There's so much in skilling that just actually feels so bad and sticky. And it's just like, I feel like there's no philosophy of like how to make skilling good, and it just kind of like throw shit at the wall and it's like, all right, this will do. I mean, it's not like we need to change anything. It feels like the DMV or something where it's like there's no real incentive or competition to make skilling actually good, because it's like, well, people have to do it regardless because people, it's a means to an end. So we can just kind of come out with anything. Whereas PVM, you want it to be
You're
shiny.
kind of not wrong.
Yeah.
Is the reality, right? Like we have got to a point now where skilling majorly is means to an end, and we do want to make sure that means to an end is still fun and enjoyable, right? To at least some level, like it doesn't feel appalling or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we have done, I think, a pretty good job over the last few years on that. But the status quo is like pretty good. It's pretty acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't stop us from wanting to aspire to do more and do better, right? And like really open up what old school could even evolve to, right? Like what is old school going to look like in 5 or 10 years? Like we want to figure that out. We want to explore. We don't want to just stagnate and be formulaic. Like we want to push. So that's what the goal is.
That's cool. I also think when we see skilling, in particular classic gathering skills, when you actually have tools that you're using, I think tool upgrades really are those cool sort of uniques. And I think some sort of special attack tools could be a small push forward in that direction, where you have a new axe that you just are holding in your inventory. You're not using it, but it's like a DDS that you're gonna go hard against a rock. But it can't. It's not using the default spec timer, because then you could just have spec alts or whatever else, spec potions, and just or just go into your pool over and over and over and teleporting back. It would have to have some sort of Soul Reaper axe like mechanic, some separate.
I love the concept of it, but there's a lot of problems that probably need ironing out. But the idea of being able to just effectively like have a DDS pickaxe and just nuke a rock, like the concept's great.
That would be so cool. And again, like the important thing as well is the animations. Animations mean so much in this game. We see beautiful animations with weapons and bosses and all these things that just make everything sort of come together. And I think with a lot of skilling, it is just, I mean, you're looking at it and it's just like, what is happening? This is so boring to watch, and there's not really much going on. But man, if you could just occasionally claw spec a rock or a tree and just see it catching flames or something, like there could be something.
Are you not a chop enjoyer? What's wrong with you, dude?
Chop. Yeah, I'm not really the biggest chop enjoyer with the +3. Plus, this is another sort of branching off of this, is like, why is it that skills, some boosts only cap at 99? So when you are 97 or 98, 99, you get that +3 boost. It's not even doing anything. Like what's up with that? I don't know.
I don't. There will be a reason. Like that's like an intentional thing, right? But I feel like someone's probably like, it might be like really old like decision making where it's like probably irrelevant these days, but I don't know. There probably is a reason, but that reason might be a bit dated at this point. Weird.
Okay, well, there's so much with skilling. I know you're the PVM guy, so I'm gonna more focus on the sort of PVM side of things. Are you working on the maggot boss?
No, I'm on raids for basically the rest of the year.
Okay. Are you going to have any sort of influence over, maybe just doing some testing or whatever else, or is that just a completely separate thing from what?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be involved at some point. I'll look over design, playtest it a bit, get feedback, etc.
Okay. Because one of the things is that it's caught my eye. I also mentioned this with Mod Sween as well. We're getting a new range necklace. Well, that's the proposed thing that's coming out, and it's called the Necklace of Pursuit. I'm pretty sure that we'll get a name change, at least based on the community feedback I've seen. But regardless, we're getting a brand new range amulet, which is +8 and +22 accuracy, I believe, which is a pretty sizable upgrade compared to the Anguish. And it made me think, and this is something I mentioned to Mod Sween, was, are we going to be getting any sort of mid-game amulets that have legitimate damage buffs? So something like a Deadeye or what is the mage equivalent of the Royal Titans, whatever that one is. Yeah.
I think in general, I have a big desire to add a lot of like mid-gamey gear, like mage gear in particular is really poor. Especially like jewelry and stuff, right? Like you're going from a magic amulet to a like it's kind of just like and yeah, I think range strength gear in particular is very lacking as well. And now that we've got more and more upgrades, it's easier to reasonably introduce things that are lower in scale, right? So I would love to do that. I don't think, like, feel free to disagree, but I don't think there's many pieces of content in the game right now that I could reasonably see us retrofitting them to.
Hmm.
So it would have to be new updates, and we don't do mid-game updates.
Yeah. So this is something I had kind of mentioned was, I mean, what if we did just buff the Amulet of Magic, for example, or the or completely revamp the Amulet of Defense? I mean, we have a blue amulet called the Amulet of Magic that barely does that. I mean, it is 10 accuracy, which is not nothing, but it doesn't have, it's not giving you any actual damage.
It's quite a lot of accuracy, but it gives you a lot of accuracy in a point of the game where magic accuracy means basically nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have this amulet, and then you have a green amulet, which should indicate ranged, you know, and it's an Amulet of Defense, completely useless. It has no use. I mean, that should be, I mean, I'm working on a video right now trying to propagate my, you know, propaganda to, you know, my YouTube audience or whatever. And one of the things I'm offering is, what if we were to completely just change the Amulet of Defense? Nobody would be sad. I don't even think anybody would notice, but nobody would be sad about the Amulet of Defense completely just changing to be a ranged amulet and just make it so it has 10 ranged accuracy. And my proposal in this video, and I want to hear your thoughts, is just, what if we even gave the magic amulet like +2 magic percent? It's the only thing you can ever get from the beginning of the game until 93 Slayer that's going to enhance your damage around your neck at all. And I don't think it would be the end of the world for that to be sort of an early thing you can get. And then maybe in the future you get something that's like a +3.5 or something from some other mid-game boss in the future, because you guys are doing like the 0.5 percentages and whatever else. And then I was thinking, you know, the range amulet could be the green one, the emerald one, very, very basic. You can make it super early game, and it's also got +2 range strength. Again, there is no actual harm in any of this, I would argue, because literally your DPS is so fucking poor at the beginning of the game. And I just think it would be cool to reasonably equip an amulet and feel like you're actually getting a little bit of power out of it. Just like maybe a max hit occasionally with your steel arrows or whatever else, you know?
Yeah. So I got two thoughts on that.
Okay.
One is, I think balance wise, like even an occult early game, like most of the time won't give you a max hit, right? Like you need a max of 20 or something to get a max hit from occult. Math. Yeah, I think it's just because obviously your max is so low, percentages don't give you shit really. And it kind of applies to strength bonus as well. Like when you've got a really low strength level, you need a lot of strength bonus to actually get a max hit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's weirdly, it'd probably be fairly balanced already, which in my mind means I think early game you probably actually want to give like a different stat. I think you'd want to give like flat damage or something. Like if you had an amulet that just gave you like a 1 max hit for range or a mage or something, maybe it gives you a fire spell max hit or something, right? I think that would probably end up working better because it would be more useful early on, and it would still scale pretty badly into the late game. Percentage when actual strength bonus would start to overtake. But I do think already that probably would be a better angle. But yeah, giving early strength bonus is generally a fairly safe thing. You are right.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, okay, I think getting like an upgrade that's an Amulet of Magic kind of just a bit wet. It's a bit underwhelming. I think I would rather it be like, I don't know, maybe an early game quest or something, or an early game boss, or an early game skilling activity. Just something where you kind of have to like actually engage with it to some degree, and then you get to unlock it, get attached to your Amulet of Magic or something like that, or it's a separate amulet.
Mm-hmm.
To get that upgrade, because I don't think it'd feel very satisfying to just like buff Amulet of Magic to give it strength bonus. You basically get it for free. You didn't really have to try for it. Like I don't think you'd really get a lot of like satisfaction from it.
Yeah.
Even though, yeah, you would end up liking your Amulet of Magic a little bit. Yeah. I think there's value in like it making the player like have to like a bit earn it, so to speak.
Yeah, totally fair. So, you know, even if it were to just be an Amulet of Magic, has the +10 accuracy, and then from some, you know, Scurious 2.0 or some early Edgeville dungeon thing, raid little thing that you can get an upgrade for. I think that would be just phenomenal to just attach
even
it
just
to,
like a low-level Slayer creature, right?
Yeah.
Like low-level Slayers are already so bad. Like imagine if there's a creature that was like 30 Slayer requirement or something.
Oh, that would be,
and they dropped an item that you could attach to an amulet magic. Like I think that'd be great.
that would be perfect. Yeah. And then the other thing is like, you know, you do have these options. You guys have already kind of spread out the magic damages. So even though an amulet alone is not really going to be doing much, if you attach it to a couple pieces of infinity armor or, you know, a mage's book or whatever you're getting early days, that extra +2 might actually just be enough to give you that extra max hit in some situations.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I think just sort of pimping out, because it's so sad that there is literally 0 damage necklace slot with ranged or mage until 87 crafting for and a +5 boost to get the anguish and a Zenite or the occult, which is just crazy that there's nothing before that. So anyway.
Yep.
And what's even more wild about it is the fact that there is none of that, and we have these insane melee amulets. I mean, you get an amulet of strength within 5 minutes of playing the game, and it's as good as
it's
a torture.
Wild, right?
Yeah, it's just like, okay, yeah, going to be using this torture early on. So interesting. Just some quirky things that I think about a lot is just how clunky this game really is, and yet how balanced it somehow maintains. It's interesting how that all works, but. Okay, moving on, I wanted to touch on honestly, the current state of the wilderness. This is a complete sort of shift, but I really do want to talk about this because we're seeing all these new upgrades coming into the game. Damage is getting higher and higher, and I just wonder in the next 5 to 10 years, what is happening to the wilderness? Are we going to kind of see a separation of it, of like PVM items and PvP items? We have already seen that, but is there going to be a distinct line between like, all right, we're entering raids 5 and 6 and 7, and we're getting these crazy rewards that just can't even be used in the wilderness? Like, do you have any sort of intuition on what we're going to be seeing for the wilderness changes in next 10 years when people are going to just get one shot?
I mean, it sounds like your specific question is about like weapons and rewards being used in the wilderness and like the state of max hits in PvP, right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really answer like wider than that in terms of like what is the plan with the wilderness, right? It's a very big question, and there are discussions internally about like what is like the long-term plan with PvP and stuff, which I've not really been in, honest. But in terms of the max hit thing, I have talked about this quite a few times with Manked about this, and I think an elegant solution is just to make it so at some point, maybe we're already at that point, but at some point when we think it's really important, we make it so your max hit in PvP is like kind of capped. Let's say 95 or something, I don't know. Maybe it's dependent on the weapon. And then every max hit above that would like round down into like a min hit. So like you're still effectively getting the same DPS increase, but you're like, the chance of you like KOing someone isn't actually going good.
That makes sense.
And I feel like that's a fairly elegant way around the problem, and it wouldn't feel too arbitrary or anything like that. It wouldn't feel too restrictive. There might be other suggestions as well. Like you could make it so, like this is a way of making it like if you, instead of going from 95 to 96, you know how like the damage distribution works, right? Like if you got your max is 95, your chance of hitting a 95 is a 1 in 9.
Yeah.
What we could do as well is like maybe the 96 max hit is actually just another 95, and your 97th max hit is actually just another 95. So then when you roll damage distribution, it's actually a 3 in 95 chance.
Yeah, so it's like Zulrah.
A 3 in 97 chance of getting it. Yeah, kind of.
Zulrah's a little bit different. It scales between 5 different things, or 6.
Like there's a couple of different like subtle like math tricks you could probably do that solve like the KO issue.
Yeah.
A little bit. But it depends what we think is most important. I'm not too worried about that. I feel like that's reasonably solvable.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think there is just some lingering fear of like it's not even really about the PvPers either. It's mostly about the Iron Men out there that are now up against people with this just insane loadout that are just hitting repeated 95s or whatever else, and you're just like, well, I'm dead because this guy has this weapon or whatever else. Which I would love to jump into a whole wilderness revamp discussion, but I know you're not the guest for it, so I'll skip over that.
It is interesting you say that though, because like This is it's always such an interesting perspective because like PvPers are on the complete flip side, right? Where they feel like anyone who's like even mildly competent, like not necessarily mildly competent at PvP, but just mildly competent of like knowing how to escape, like you can't kill them. Like if you like eat properly and you pray a little bit and you know how to like freeze and step under, like you can escape virtually every situation.
Hmm.
And like I don't know how true that is from like personal experience because I've not like engaged in a lot of wildy gameplay, but I do hear a lot of PvPers talking about like that side of things, and they're frustrated about how like they effectively just can never really get any kills because people will just freeze them, step under, and opt out of gameplay every single time. And there's not really a lot the PvPer can do about that, really. All they can do is try and kill you quicker.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're the whims of RNG there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, lethality does help that a little bit in terms of like killing people quicker. But I do think, in general, from my point of view, like I feel like there should be more agency added on both sides. I feel like we can redesign like wildy caves and things like that in a way that give players more agency on like how risky they want to be in terms of like whereabouts in the Rev caves am I going to kill like a Revenant or two Slayer creatures or something like that, and that dictates like maybe there's more spawns deeper in the cave, but like obviously it's further away from a agility shortcut, and things like that. Like, I feel like giving the escapers more agency is good. Yeah. Then also giving the PKers more agency in terms of like they have more hotspots. They know kind of where to go. It's not just hopping between 30 worlds to find a single person that hops immediately, right? Like that's not fun for them either. So I think more agency needs to be added on both sides to make that feel better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't exactly know what all of those implemented agency would be like. There's one idea that I was talking about with Framed a while ago on like, imagine a spec weapon that would consume your current freeze. Like imagine you've been Ice Barrage, you're frozen. It would consume your freeze and like boost its accuracy or damage or something. The idea would be like, yeah, it's a limited amount of resource. Maybe it consumes like 100% spec energy, right? But like that would be help you unfreeze, gives you agency of escaping, but it also kind of just encourages you to fight back a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And like if you hit big, then maybe you should be like committing a little bit harder. Like that might be like just one rough idea of like, is this a way of like adding a bit more agency to both sides? Obviously, a PvPer can use that as well, right? They could technically use that to unfreeze themselves so that you can't just step under.
Yeah.
Like, is there a lot of ideas of tools like that that'd be good? I don't think the idea of just having like a potion that just unfreezes you is a good idea because like you'd probably have to add a cooldown on it. How would it be not abusable? Is it really encouraging the right kind of gameplay? Does it just remove freezes from the equation? But
well,
things like that I think is a space worth exploring.
It's interesting. I mean, I was actually one of the players that was suggesting an unfreeze potion, but the caveat was it can only be drank in multi. So it's a 4-dose potion. It's made with some sort of secondary. It actually doesn't have a cooldown. I mean, the only cooldown is the 3-tick cooldown as a normal potion. But what the trade-off is like, what are you going to bring? Are you going to bring food to survive, or are you going to bring these potions? And how many potions do you want to bring? Because what if you're not getting frozen? And I don't know. I think there's just sort of a trade-off where I think maybe I'll bring a few of these in the Wilderness Slayer cave. And so I'm doing my task. I got 3 of these potions. A whole group of 6 people come on me. There's no way I'm going to escape if I didn't have these. But now there's a chance where I get frozen. I drink it. And then if there was the trade-off as well of they can immediately freeze you. There is no 5-tick delay between them refreezing you. They could just endlessly barrage you, but you can endlessly unfreeze it. So there is actually a fighting chance for you to just have enough anti-freeze to get into a single zone because you're already tele-blocked. I mean, there's nothing you can possibly do. So I think in a multi setting, it's not going to affect any sort of 1v1 fights at all. It's just the multi, and it's usually just for the prey that's being attacked, that this is a way for them to maybe get out.
Yeah. To be clear, from all the stuff that I was talking about, it's from like a singles point of view. Multi is a whole can of worms.
It
right?
is, yeah.
Like, it is virtually impossible to make any like meaningful one versus many interactions in multi. It's very finicky, right? Like that one person's always basically just gonna get like even if you had all these tools in play, they can all just spec you and you'll die. Right? Like, there's nothing you
if they're coordinated enough. Some of the time you're coming against these rough teams that are in Zarishan's robes, and you wish you had any sort of chance to escape. But no, one of them has the goddamn swamp bark armor, whatever the hell is freezing you an extra 5 seconds, and you're just sat there taking a beating and just getting flamed. And it's just like there has to be something that we can do about this.
I think multi in general and multi in singles needs to just generally be reassessed. And I don't know if that's like making sure there's like more of like an opt-in gameplay for multi, or making obviously the areas a lot more clear about like where multi and singles really is. Maybe it's building caves in a way that it's like really obvious where single multi is and it's very easy to like get between them or something. Like,
yeah,
I do think in general, like multi is it's in a very weird place for a lot of players. Obviously there is a lot of PvPers that really enjoy multi and it encourages a really cool gameplay style. Yeah. But again, it's still kind of important that it's kind of like sort of opt-in and it has back and forth and players have agency, again, on both sides.
Yeah.
It's still not fun for this multi-group to hop like 30 times looking for a single person, just barrage and spec. Like it's bare minimum like gameplay there. Yeah. It needs to be better for them as well.
And then and again, if we're talking about making it better for everyone, the grand solution that does have a couple issues with it, but the issues are so small, is just add a sort of wilderness coffer. And the idea, I don't know if you've heard it, is just basically making it so everything is GP value related. And so whenever you kill somebody, you're just going to get a value of what it was worth. And the way that gold is being transferred, it's not like now items are no longer being transferred over. It's like what it is you would set up a coffer outside the wilderness, maybe next to Cristelia or something, dump gold in there, and then now that is containing the gold that will be transferred to the person that killed you. So now when you enter the wilderness and the items you're risking is 15 mil, when you die, you don't lose anything on you. You are just losing the value of what you were risking out in the wilderness. And then the player gets the key that just has that value on it. And so the one downside is some PvPers could be like, this is annoying because I wanted to actually get the items from the person. I didn't want to just see
it sounds pretty boring just getting gold repeatedly.
Yeah,
but I get the idea.
But the upsides are massive. And here's the other thing. It could be an opt-in system. So what if the coffer actually, because of the convenience of not losing your stuff, there's a convenience fee of maybe 5 or 10%. So the person that gets the key ultimately just made 10% more on top for losing out on the thrill of opening a key and seeing all the items. There could even be a RuneLite plugin that gives you a simulated version of this is what you actually got, but we've converted it into gold and it's in your bank now. And I think there's a lot of ways around it, but the best part about this sort of solution is the fact that the wilderness becomes a place that ends up just being a lot more frictionless. It's like, I'm going to go out there as an Iron Man. I'm risking very low. If I die, it's not the end of the world because I respawn with all the shit I just had and I just lose the value of what I was risking. And so it doesn't feel like this devastating blow to your ego and to just the amount of time you lost. And now you have to go rebuy fucking mystic robes at the Mage Guild because you lost those because you're trying to kill something. It becomes way less friction, or it becomes way more frictionless where you just die. You have some fun in the PvP zone. You die, you lose your value, and that's it. You're back in the action. You can just immediately go back to the thing you were doing. And I think there is potentially, and I'm more looking 5-10 years in the future where there really is. We're just trying to focus on the fun and we're trying to keep the wilderness what it is and have that high risk, high reward, but we're trying to get back in the action and not have that devastating feeling. And you were even talking about it earlier of like respawning in Lumberage to a PVM encounter and just like having to deal with all that bullshit of re-gearing and going back and paying a fee and running back there. And it's just like, if we got rid of the friction, again, this is a massive change to old school. I'm not arguing that this would be just like a 1 week update, but it would have to be something that people would want. But if there was some sort of just full revamping of the wilderness where people can just go in there and fight back and not feel like they're going to get skull tricked or anything, it's just all value exchanging of like dying or not dying, and you can actually attack back.
I get the desire there, and I think ironing out the friction benefits everyone, right? Like even PvPers versus PvPers, like they still die and have to go through all this frustration as well. And there are some ideas there that might have value. It's just obviously, yeah, a very complicated and like messy project because like Wilderness and RuneScape in general is full of like weird edge cases, right? And situations that
Yep.
need to be considered.
And you're dealing with
I
a game that is 25 years old and people don't want it to change. And like that makes total sense. Like I get it. So it's mainly just bringing these ideas out and having people discuss for years and trying to just create a better game for everybody. Because really the idea is to have actual interaction in the wilderness. Right now, the only incentive for anybody in the wilderness is just get the fuck out, is to log out, teleport immediately whenever you see any name. It's just ridiculous. If there was none of that friction, I wouldn't actually mind dying and losing a mill out of my coffer and just immediately going back. I could just fight back for fun and it wouldn't feel like this massive weight on my shoulders to like get attacked and lose all the shit I have.
Even worse when it's for a clue, right? You gotta like re-gear for your clue every single time.
Yeah. So it's mainly looking at the positives rather than all the changes that would be made. It's like there are so many issues with the wilderness right now. There's so many bad incentives. There's so many reasons why not to go out there. And if we just had some actual engagement out there where Iron Men can feel like they have some incentive, plus this coffer idea, I failed to mention this, but now you've incentivized irons to fight back, because when you kill somebody as an Iron Man, that money that you claimed from their key goes into your coffer. Now, as an Iron Man, you can never actually touch that coffer yourself, but a main account could utilize that coffer. So if you wanted to PK on an Iron Man, you now could, and it would just all go to that Iron Man coffer that can't be touched by the Iron Man, but can be accessed by a main account that, maybe has the password to it or whatever else, or maybe there's some interconnection between your accounts that you can transfer gold. So a main account could fund your coffer as well. They could also take from it if you're PKing. So there actually is legitimate incentive for Iron Man to fight back, and it's not a complete waste of time. So anyway, just
yeah.
Let's move. I mean, I'm not even a PvPer. It's just it's just funny how much passion I have for this, but it really is like, I want to have fun in the wilderness. Everybody wants to be able to have a good time out there. And there's so much potential for wilderness bosses, like really complex wilderness bosses to go out there. And if we could all go out there and have fun and not feel like it's the biggest devastation in the world to die, it would just be so fun to just die. Okay, I lost some money. It's fine. Let's run back out there. I'm already geared. I don't know. Okay. I want to touch on the cow boss. This is something that, we were talking in our DMs, and it really has not been discussed much. And I think just because there are some massive updates like Blood Moon Rises and Raids 4 and all these other things, Dead Man modes happening right now. But I am excited personally for this. And I was just talking about it on the Say More episode. And first off, let me ask you, because you guys tried something with this with Scurious, and it says in the blog post, Scurious didn't quite hit the nail on the head. It feels like you can't just go to Scurious within a week of a new account. It feels more like a month into a new account you can start doing some Scurious, if you're a normal casual player. And you guys wanted to come out with something where, seriously, within a first few hours of an account, you can go to this cow boss and get some cool uniques. So let's I guess I want to hear your overall take on the cow boss, what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I mean, you did nail it pretty well there. We just wanted to make sure that very early on, you could maybe have a little bit of a sneak peek into what RuneScape combat can be like. Because I'm sure everyone listening to this has tried to convince some of your friends to play Old School, and they give it a look and just scoff. And you can't really send them a video of like endgame PVM because they probably won't understand it, or they probably won't watch it. But maybe you do manage to convince them to log in for a bit, and then they're just hitting goblins, and the goblin hits back, and then you hit the goblin, and it hits back, and you hit 0 5 times in a row, and you're like, wow, this game's enthralling. And like, obviously, every other typical MMO on the market, like, you're probably spamming like 12 buttons by then. And I'm not saying that's good. Like, I'm not saying we're trying to aim to be that, but at least they give you an idea of what combat can be like. And that's kind of where the cow boss kind of comes in. It's like, it's a cute little quest, which is obviously just a nice little addition. Then you get a nice reward. So again, there's an incentive there for an early account to go do that. But then it gives you a little bit of a taste of what like combat's like. And then it gives you actually a boss you could actually grind and kind of see that loop, so to speak. Like you could just kill the boss like a dozen, 2 dozen times. You'd probably get like maybe 1, maybe 2 uniques at that point because they are quite common. And then you just get that satisfaction, that full gameplay loop of doing a quest, getting a reward from a quest, seeing like some cool combat, killing the boss a handful of times, getting unique that you care about, and now you've upgraded your account. You got a new offhand, you got a new defender or something. Now you can like move on in your life, right? And now you're kind of excited for the future, right? We talked to a lot of WoW creators, and they quoted Scurious as being like a pivotal moment for them in their journey. Because like they're obviously coming from World of Warcraft, where the combat is very refined and good in a lot of ways, and they're obviously taking a massive step back playing Old School. Old School's got some of the best progression systems out there, and I don't think anyone would really disagree. But obviously, the art style and the combat is like on the surface level very underwhelming. And Scurious was kind of a moment for them, and specifically with combat, that was just like, oh wow, this game can actually be quite a lot more. And they saw the potential, and that got them excited for the future. Obviously, a lot of people don't get Scurious, like you said. Like it's a bit further away. Yeah. You don't really need to do it. There's no quest for it or anything. There's no real drops or anything like that. You're kind of just doing it for the sake of it, really, like for a bit of fun and maybe for XP. So it doesn't quite hit the mark on like the desirability angle and the early game angle. So yeah, I'm excited for this update. And then we did the hard mode for fun because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it feels like this boss. I mean, one of the big requirements to Scurious is you really got to have 43 prayer, or at least 2 of the first overheads. I guess you don't need melee, but that is a massive requirement. And then when you have the prayer, it's like your prayer is gone to 0 before the boss is even half health.
You're like expecting people to prayer flick immediately. It's like that's unreasonable.
Like, we really needed some sort of demonic ruins effect where prayer is just slowly regained over time, or even have the cheese pile have like some rat altar that you can pray at after every kill. Like that would have been absolutely essential to nail the boss perfectly.
The cheese, serious?
What?
Can you not eat the cheese?
You can, but it doesn't heal your prayer.
Oh man, that's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been like a little God Wars thing, but no, it's just no prayer. And then it's just way too far out of the way to recharge your prayer every time. I mean, so it sounds like this cow boss though is not gonna be using any protection prayers. Maybe just some step back.
We can't expect someone to have prayers, right? Yeah. So yeah, it is just kind of dodging stuff.
That's super cool. That feels like a great opportunity to get people engaged and just timing and stuff with things super early on. So super excited. I have a couple questions about the rewards, which is we just got holy molies. Now we're getting holy cows. Is that what we're getting?
No, they asked that on the summit as well. Yeah. But we've got a Reddit quote we need to meet of the requests for the holy cows for a few years.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're definitely getting holy cows. That's gonna happen in the future. But these cow slippers look amazing. And the other thing that's amazing is this sort of steel defender, the muleta. And again, it's just one of those things similar to what I was kind of talking about before, like giving the magic amulet a little bit of extra, pizzazz. And I think having an early defender type thing, even if it's not doing much at all, maybe in some situations giving you barely extra little thing to give you a max hit, I think is really cool. So, and I also needed to talk about this bottomless milk bucket. So when you had mentioned earlier, of the cow boss, I had to take a little deep dive on the wiki and just examine the normal milk bucket, and I was like, can you drink from this thing? Because man, if there was now this bucket where you can drink from it and it's a food item,
stackable food,
like this could be game changing. And then I looked at the wiki and it says there's no drink option. It's just use or empty or drop or whatever. So
it's a bit of a meme reward, but I don't know, for feeding your cats, like you can have milk on demand.
It's cool. It is cool.
Milking cows.
And because I also, when I was doing the research, I saw this guy that was asking for churning butter, or like the churning thing, the dairy churner or whatever it's called, that thing apparently is super slow. It takes like 5 minutes to get a full inventory of butter or cheese or whatever. And he's like, can we please speed this up to like 3 ticks so it only takes like 45 seconds to get an inventory? But these are the kinds of little changes that, even though they don't affect me, I still want the game to feel alive. I want there to be, even in the most niche situations where some dude is a snowflake chunk man that can only use a bucket or something, like he has now a way of, or using pots and buckets, he can now go to the mill and make flour in a slightly more efficient way that doesn't feel super clunky, and make his cheese and whatever, make his pizzas. I think that's all great. So
again, man, like player agency is like so important, and just giving like these kind of meme rewards, someone will find a use for it. Like the fact that someone who genuinely wants to make cakes or butter now has like an option to like go out and grind this upgrade, like that's gonna be satisfying for them. Great. And I think more of that, the better, really.
I completely agree. The last thing I'll say is on the rump steaks, the little steaks we're getting, I would love it if those had a 2-tick delay rather than a 3-tick. I know there's some gnome foods as well you can get early on that also have a 2-tick delay, but if these steaks had the 2-tick delay, who knows? They could actually be like legitimately more useful than just a 10 HP healing food, which I think they're currently gonna be. So just something extra potentially, but I'm just all about this. And there was something said about the hard mode as well. I guess this is the last thing I'll mention on it. How hard is this hard mode gonna be of this cow boss?
It's pretty hard.
Like scythe requirement or what
I mean, like anything in RuneScape, right? There's no real hard requirements. It could get better. I'm sure Porkazar will do it by punching it or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty hard. I would rate it like, I don't know if it's quite Awakened Leviathan, but it's close.
Holy shit. Okay.
It's close.
Okay, noted. Awakened
Leviathan. It's a bit ridiculous.
Is there like I'm just, you don't need to reveal anything too much, but is there something like you have to sort of map your place out in the arena sort of so that the end can be flawless, kind of like like at the enraged phase? I just wonder, because it feels like with Awakened Leviathan there's so much planning beforehand, not fucking up your area.
It's not got the planning component of Awakened Leviathan though. It's like the click intensity.
Okay. I'm about that. That sounds fun.
Be interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun couple of hours on launch probably, watching people attempt it.
The Awakened Leviathan, there's something truly satisfying about that. Before I had killed it, I remember thinking, what the hell is Jagex doing right now? Like this is out of control because of how many clicks you need to perform. But when you actually do it, you're really just moving 2 tiles and then attacking 2 tiles and attack, if you're doing the blowpipe method, which ends up having a better rhythm. And then on top of that, there's only 2 styles that are flicking at you anyway, and there's a big chance that you're going several ticks without even having to change your prayer. So more of that, I can't lie. If there were more PVM scenarios where you're having to do a mechanic like that, even for a brief period of time, that is so fun. I think so. Very cool. Okay, so any last thoughts on the cow boss? Anything that maybe I didn't notice that you think might be cool?
It's going to be a really interesting day 1 for pet owners. Why? It's such a low level boss, man. I think it's got like 58 hit points. Like you're going to be able to one-shot that thing repeatedly. So it's going to be a weird boss to grind. I think everyone's going to get it in a day. Yeah, it's just solo. Okay. So like people are going to be farming that in a day. It's probably going to be the fastest pet to get in the game.
You know what? You should just trigger everybody and have the respawn be a minute, and there's no like cooling it off. So you just one swing. Wait a minute, no, don't do that.
Please. We've been very generous. So the cowbell amulet that you get from the quest, it's like a teleport to the Lumbridge Cowpen. It has an op on it that lets you ring the cowbell, and if you're ringing it whilst you're in the instance for the cow boss, it'll respawn the boss quicker.
That is amazing.
You kill the boss and just ring the bell, and the boss will come trot on.
Okay, that is the kind of stuff we need. I mean, I think Tasty on Behemoth was recommending this as well, of like Wins God War is going to have like the altar have a right click option where it's just start boss. You don't even have to be physically near it, the altar, but just right click and say start next boss without it having to cool off, you know, a minute after Zammy's dead. What are your actual thoughts on that? Because I feel like there's an economic problem with that, potentially items coming into the game too much. What are your thoughts?
That's always the awkward things like with stuff like this, where as a player, it would feel so much better, right, to not be forced to just sit around and wait. Like, that's just not fun for anyone. But the kills per hour and like the amount of Bandos armor coming into the game is probably more gated by the respawn than anything else right now.
Wow.
So if we lowered the respawn from, I don't know, what is it, 30 seconds, 40 seconds down to 3, theoretically, that would have probably quite notable impact. So it's frustrating because you want to give the players like the fun thing, but if the fun thing like really hurts the economy in a way that makes players have less fun in other ways, like if items go down in value, right, people are going to be sad as well.
Yeah.
It's like, what's more important? I don't know. There's no clear answer on stuff like that. Like I was nervous about a lot of the Chambers of Xeric changes that we've made over the years because the whole like scouting stuff where you could like arbitrarily increase your group size to like scale it up. Like my perspective on that was like, this could have a very dramatic effect on the amount of purples that come into because now everyone that was doing solos but theoretically could have done like dolos or trollos or whatever, like they're effectively getting more points per hour now. And like if it's by a knowable amount, like say it's like 15% more points per hour on average, that's theoretically up to 15% more uniques in the game, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, or sort of thankfully, Cox is almost all in T-Bow, and T-Bow's really fucking rare anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But if Cox theoretically had a healthier drop table and more of a spread and it wasn't all in T-Bow, I think that would have had quite a noticeable effect on like most of the a lot of stuff like that adds up as well. Like, I mean, this is a really bad example as well, but we've effectively buffed Fasani's Nightmare's drop rate like 3 times now, right? Like, I think we buffed it by 20% twice. Fasani's was already like a 30 or 40% buff, and then we removed a phase off it recently, which was like another like 33% buff or something.
And the Sleepy Tablet.
Yeah, and the Sleepy Tablet and stuff. It's like, that's been buffed so many times, and that probably has been a big part of why those items have dropped over the years, but in the reality is the biggest reason they're dropping their value is that they're just not very good items.
Yeah, and they keep getting worse with new upgrades that are coming out. That's just going to be the case with anything. So
yeah.
Do you? I mean, man, if I could be god of this game for a day, one of the things I would definitely change. This might be. I don't even think it's unpopular. I just think it might be considered, I don't know, aggressive or something, is just get rid of normal Nightmare entirely and just put Fasani's in the middle room in that big beam, and then make it just so Fasani's can be up to 5-man and or even up to 2-man. If it was just like a 2-man thing, sort of like Yama, and it's like a side quest thing, you can do solo, you can do duo, but it's just the Fasani's fight. I would be.
I think
so
it is
happy.
getting close to time to repolling the whole Nightmare Fasani situation, because I think we did poll this once already, trying to like modernize regular Nightmare and bring it up to scratch in a lot of ways, and it did fail. But I don't know if that was because of a badly worded question.
Oh, interesting.
If the community was just poorly received at the time. Maybe perceptions changed on it now as well. But I do think, it's not in a great position.
Do you think with the new Crush weapon coming out that Inquisitors will make a little bit of a comeback, or Nightmare in general make a comeback, or do you think it's just too far gone and it's not even that useful? Torva might just be the move instead.
I think in general Torva is probably just going to be better, but there'll be some niche use cases where Inquisitor by how much, who knows? But I think again we're probably going to be getting closer and closer to the point where we need to do something about Inquisitors. It was the right thing at the time, but the landscape of the game has changed, player sentiment's changed. I think it probably needs to be kind of reworked to some degree. Even if it's just like bringing it up to be like Oath play, right, where it's like actually got relative defenses, but then we'll probably have to have like a low defense option for the people PvPers and stuff. Like, it'll be messy and complicated, but Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're probably getting closer and closer to needing to do something.
I hope that, even if it was something just, I don't know. I want so badly for the work you put into Fasanis to be like actually recognized and played on new accounts and stuff. I mean, it's just so sad. I mean, I recently started a new hardcore, and no part of my mind is thinking I'll ever touch Fasanis on this account, which is really sad because it could be a cool side quest to go. Like instead of
Yeah.
going for Oathplate, or instead of going for Bandos, or instead of going for Blood Moon, I can spend some time over at Fasani's, and who knows, maybe the drop table's a little bit more reworked as well. It already did get a nice rework, so you're getting valuable resources, and the fight's faster now. But man, if uniques were just a little bit more common, and there was some fortification skilling attachment to make it up to par, like you were saying, like, man, that would be
I think
so
I
cool.
probably know. I think I probably know your answer on this already. But what is your opinion on the whole like new account route of like going Demon Bane into Oathplate instead of like Bandos into
Well,
stuff? Like, what's your opinion on this like new route?
yeah, my honest take with all this, and it's something I don't really talk about much because I just feel like I'm speaking into the void, and it really doesn't matter because the game has just progressed so far. But I was talking about these sorts of specialized weapons long ago when the Dragon Hunter Lance first came out, because the first thing we really saw was Arclight. Like the Arclight came out, it became the best in slot for demons, but it had a cost, and a hefty cost at that. It was untradeable, shards you had to maintain, and in a lot of places you just weren't using it. And we saw the same thing with a scythe. If an Iron Man pulled a scythe, I remember Lake pulling his first scythe in the early days of Tob, and he wasn't even using it. He was just using his rapier at Ulm. This is before the lance had come out. And then we saw this lance come out that had zero charging with it, and it just became the best for all dragons across the board. And I thought that was really silly to just dominate one thing by a completely uncharged weapon. Like if it was charged with Hydra scales or something, and Hydra scales became the currency of Hydra, that would have made more sense because it's a specialized weapon, and I loved the Arclight. And then we came out with all the Tormented Synapses, which have now completely made irrelevant the charged feature with the Arclight. And so now demons, you must kill them with these like insanely OP things. And what kind of ends up sucking, and we saw it sort of with TOA, is like if you roll up to TOA for your first few KCs and you're using a rapier, it sucks. And then you get a Fang, and not only is the Fang better, but there's also an enhanced buffed version for the raid of it. It makes it so the rapier's like 40% worse, or whatever the hell number it is. It's just out of control. And I feel like that's the main issue with these sorts of like rushes to getting these insanely OP items that have use in a lot of situations. I mean, you go to Zami with it, you go to Yama with it, you go to Doom with it, you can go to Serb with it. There's a bunch of bosses, Sire with it. I mean, everything's a fucking demon or a dragon. And the thing that makes me sad about it is that they're just so much more dominant than any other weapon that there is no spot for you to just decide to use the second best. It's like literally just this or nothing. And I think that's the main issue with the sorts of rushes that we're seeing, is that there's just these weapons that are way too out of control powerful, and they're specialized with no charging unit to it. And that is unpopular because of the charging stuff, but there is ways to conveniently charge things and not make it a nuisance and make it so it feels fair. But we just never saw that. They're just permanent upgrades, and I don't know. That's my thought process.
Yeah, I do generally have takes on like rewards in general and how charges have a lot of benefits, and you've obviously highlighted quite a few of them there. But I was more thinking about like the more zoomed out approach of like
just skipping things.
Very, very kind of, yeah. Like obviously, but even before like Bofa was added, like there was effectively like one path through the game, right, for an Iron Man. Like everyone basically did the same thing with a bit of variance. I was a bit of an edge lord and decided to rush Tebow, and before doing God Wars or like a bunch of Slayer bosses and stuff. But I just knew I loved Chambers. But most of the time, like there was a very clear path. Go Hydra and then do Chambers, etc. But yeah, obviously Bofa came out, and Bofa was effectively like a different progression path through the game, and that's obviously seen a lot of popularity, even though Red Prison is a real problem. But now with like the Yama and the Demon Bane weapons and Doom and stuff, there's like a third path through the game now.
Yeah.
And I've just seen people on both sides of it, right? Like I think quite a lot of people like really like it as an option. Like it kind of helps replayability. Like when you make a new account, like you're not forced to just go to the gold grind, quote unquote forced. And that's quite cool. But then obviously, yeah, there's a perspective of like you're effectively skipping content. Now you don't need to do Bandos anymore, and people are sad about that, right? It's not that Bandos doesn't have a purpose. Like you still probably want to get Torva eventually, and if you want to get Torva, you got to get Bandos. And if you want to do Bandos, you probably want to do A, B, or C or whatever, right? So it's not like the content's irrelevant, but it feels like you can get to like the end game of an Iron Man without having to do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
And like some people are sad about that. I was just curious what
I want to say I don't have that big of a problem with things like Moons, for example, was a huge game changer. Vast majority of people love the content and love the fact that it can push you forward to be basically being raids ready very quickly. So if people want to rush that way, that's fine. I always play in a different way where I try to go the unbeaten paths and try to make these like quirky little routes. I know with Squat Cam, my last Iron Man that I'm currently trying to max on the side, I went to Sarah Dome and God Wars before basically anything. The main thing I wanted to get was like an ACB and an SGS, and I got that super early days where I was grinding all my Tormented Demons and Demonics with an SGS, never had to leave because I just had like unlimited fucking heals, which is so fun to play like that. And then, I spooned Bandos as well. So I just completely skipped over Moons and Barrows, and I had my Bandos and my God War stuff and my full Infinity and stuff. And it was just a really cool way to go about it. The only issue was, man, the amount of hours I put in to get to that point is just absurd. It's just like the amount of time you have to put in to get full Moons gear is just so little in comparison to trying to get like 3 different setups for all 3 styles and different areas. And I got spooned so massively on Bandos. I think I completed BCP and Tacits at like 112. That could have honestly taken me 1,000 kills. It would have been the craziest amount of hours to sink into that place. And
I did the same and got healed in 93, so relate.
Yeah, and it's just like, I feel like that's one of the sad parts is, even though we're coming out with all these amazing things, we're not like addressing these sorts of classic pieces of content that can actually really enhance the mid game and enhance this sort of journey to the end game. But instead, they all feel like these end game grinds that you just hold off until you have all the raids, mega rares. Then you just cheese everything else. And it's kind of sad that in a lot of ways the meta can never be that way. And the same thing with Nightmare. Nightmare is the most extreme example, but the fact that you can't really do Nightmare, it just ends up being a clogging activity, is just kind of sad to me.
I guess this is a really good example of like the problem, right? Because I think we're effectively trying to do that in terms of like releasing content that enhances like the mid game, late game, etc. As like options is what you do, right? Instead of just, if you see it as like a linear path of like progression, adding to like the start at the end like isn't overly interesting. So you try and add like options in the middle, but sometimes those options in the middle kind of let you jump stuff in reality. And as much as that's interesting, is it can sometimes be degenerate in its own ways. I don't think there's like one answer on it, but yeah, I think like maybe Oathplate was just like the wrong armor set and reward from Yama. Like if Yama gave something else, maybe it would have been completely fine, and you could have still done the progression to get Eye of Ayak, and Eye of Ayak maybe you would gone to Bandos with or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that could have been quite an interesting like alternate route. But the fact that it lets you skip something as big as Torva, which lets you skip Bandos, was maybe just too extreme in hindsight. But equally, I know how many people hate Nex, and having an alternate thing that doesn't actually fully power creep it, kind of cool as well.
Yeah. No, and I think the way forward, in my opinion, is not to diminish the fun of Yama, or like diminish like, oh well, we can't make Yama too accessible or whatever else. We gotta like ruin this content to fit it in line with everything else. I just think the clear path is just radically make changes on places that aren't fitting the current like meta sort of. So like Torva, like let's go to Nex, and I understand that there's some issues with the economy when you touch anything. Like I definitely get it, but if we just rip some band-aids off and make it so we're seeing the game not from an economic standpoint of like this needs to be this price and this needs to be this price, but just seeing it as a broad, like how many hours does it kind of take to get to these stages in the game like we're kind of talking about right now? And if we were to just see Torva as maybe let's tweak how the KC system works, maybe let's tweak how, you know, whatever, like the drop rates of the armor specifically, and then maybe we can address just all of God War's dungeon KCs. I mean, why isn't it the case that we could go, I mean, right now I'm thinking in my head on this new hardcore that I'm making, I don't want to go to the wilderness multi-area to collect ecumenical keys, but I also want to do Sarah kind of early, and I'm gonna have to kill 40 fucking wizards that have like 100 HP each just to enter the goddamn door of his, like there's just like these things that have such issues with it that just will not be resolved until we just like address it and be like, okay, this is another path you can take. You don't have to go down this route. There's other paths, and we've cleaned it up to make it accessible and fun, and we've gotten rid of all the clutter and the nuisances. And I think, again, it's like we're playing a game that's 25 years old. We don't want to completely change the feeling of the game and everything, but there's some things that like almost universally people don't like having to get KC for God Wars. It's old, it's archaic, it feels weird. You can still kind of keep it, but make it so it's, if you kill a wizard, you get 6 KC, and you know, and you can kind of stack it up and not lose it if you leave the cave. I mean, that's a really frustrating thing. If you collect 1,000 KC at next, then you die your first kill, you just lost that. Like, why can't we just store it? Why can't it just be stored there forever? I don't know.
I get you. And there's probably loads of small changes we can reasonably make. That'd be fine.
But yeah. Okay. I am loving this, by the way, Arcane. I love the questions you're throwing back at me. This is it's always just such a fucking pleasure. So thank you. Let's touch on the, okay, what was it? We kind of touched on this earlier, but I do want to just touch this topic, which was basically the way I worded it was PVM has become incredibly difficult at the highest levels. Skill expression has a massive range. I mean, just look at somebody like Port Khazard doing the crazy stuff he's doing. I mean, there is such a massive ceiling. Will we see anything with skilling when it comes to massive skill ceilings? Do you think there's any potential for that? Is there any desire for that? Do you think that would even be something that you guys could accomplish, of something like truly high level skill ceiling? I mean, we kind of see that with Sepulchre a little bit, the people that go crazy with it, but we don't see the Inferno level or the top level, solo top kind of stuff with ceiling. Do you think there's any potential for that in the next 5-10 years?
I think a limiting factor would be, I kind of want to say damage and itemization. I think it'd be quite easy, not easy, but I think it'd be relatively possible to have the same amount of skill expression in terms of like movement, and we could even add like an equivalent to prayer flicking, and you could have like obviously items to interact with. Like Pestle and Mortar is a really bad example, right? But like I think that level of like interactions and like intensity, I think would be fairly reasonable to achieve in skilling in like an appropriate thematic. And you could probably even come up with like a wave-based minigame that goes up to 69 waves, like Inferno, and has a skilling boss at the end or something, right? Like I think that's all within the realms of possibility. Whether we want to do that or not is I think that's possible. I think the limiting factor would be PVM just has so many more rewards and like items and like flexibility that I think skilling will probably never achieve. Even if we start pushing it, like we were talking about earlier, I don't think it'll ever get to the same point as PVM. Like the fact that people can decide to do Leviathan with a bronze shortbow or a wooden shortbow, regular shortbow, right? Like that's an option, right? And that increases the difficulty of the encounter. I don't think skilling will probably ever have an equivalent to that.
Yeah.
Or at least as much of an equivalent, which does limit skill expression to some extent, right? Obviously, with Port Khazard doing 27 Awakened Leviathans on one inventory or whatever, like I don't think that kind of equivalent would ever exist, because like probably be quite hard to make that quote unquote one inventory be as impressive.
Yeah.
It's like you'd probably want damage or something like that. And then like if you start doing damage and then you have an equivalent of like stuff like food and everything like that, isn't it just PVM just without attacking?
Yeah.
At a certain point, right? Like
and you're still attacking.
You're probably
just
just
using
like
the pickaxe instead of the
it.
sword. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that feels a bit fake in reality, right? So you probably don't want damage. You probably don't want like really in-depth itemization. I think there's still like a lot of evolution and like we could do a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I think. But I do think there would be a cap much lower than what PVM currently offers that we'd ever be able to. But maybe I'm being naive as well. Who knows? Maybe Mod Rice comes up with some 5-head solutions.
I'm excited to see what he comes out with this Blood Moon Rises. Now, you just talked with Theory-Wise, correct, on his podcast?
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Okay, so one of the things that we touched on, because we had an episode last month, was, I mean, he is all about this idea, and I have definitely attached myself to it as well. There's so many ways to go about it, so I don't have any like things set in stone of these ideas, and other people have started talking about it as well, of sort of parrying mechanics. We see it with the Soul Heretic fight, one of the most amazing, satisfying fights that is just so well done, in my opinion. And I think there's so much potential for these sorts of satisfying parrying of timing with actual monsters, not just a hack and slash. We kind of see something similar with the Verzik fight as well. And there's many other, I guess, examples of just even the timing of stepping back and then hitting the boss again. Ulm has something similar as well. But do you think we're going to see any sort of actual parry type thing in the future, or have you guys even discussed any bit of ideas like that?
Yeah, I'm, for full disclosure, like I'm a massive fan of like these kind of mechanics. Like one of my favorite games, 2 of my favorite games ever is Sekiro, Souls-like with a massive emphasis on parrying, and Nine Souls, which is a Metroidvania akin to something like Hollow Knight, if you're aware of that. That also has a massive emphasis on parrying, and I think they're phenomenal games. And there's just something deeply satisfying about parry as a mechanic. It's just the idea of like having this really good timing into a really big punish is just fundamentally really satisfying. I think RuneScape would be perfect for it conceptually. I don't really know how you fit it into the game on a wide scale. I think you kind of have to build the game around if you're going to implement it very widely. So I think if we were ever going to do something a little bit wider than like Soul Heretic, which is obviously very bespoke to that encounter, it would probably have to be some sort of item. Maybe it's an equipped item, maybe it's a shield, maybe obviously like it's a special type of item that you equip or whatever that has some way of interacting with it, whether that's a special attack button or you have to like right click it in your inventory or something. I don't know. Maybe it's just an item that sits in your inventory, right? And you click it and you just quickly equip a shield and then put it away. Maybe it's a shield that you equip and the tick that you equip it does the parry, right? And after that, it's just a very basic shield, right? Mm-hmm. I think you can do stuff like that, but again, it needs to balance, like retrofit it into the entire game would be very, very difficult because the game is not balanced around it.
Yeah.
They'd probably need a bunch of conditional restrictions. Maybe it only works on melee damage, and maybe it only works on melee damage and it still rolls accuracy and damage, and like it doesn't do that much, right? Like maybe it does like 10% of the damage you reflected, right? Like just imagining like how insane it would be. Like imagine you could parry anything anytime you took damage and it always reflected the amount of damage that you took.
Yeah.
Like I'm just trying to think the most exaggeratory example, right? You go to Zora, you don't even attack the boss, right? You just don't pray and you just parry, and you just destroy the boss, right?
Yeah.
It'd be ludicrous. But then like even scaling that back to the point where it's like, oh, maybe just 10% of the damage, but you can use it on every attack. Again, you go to Zora and like, do you just parry like everything and now you're just invincible? Like, I don't know how you would ever retrofit it like that. But if you added a shit ton of conditions to it, I do think there's a world where we could introduce an item that has a parry mechanic.
Interesting. I mean, you're right about the retrofitting of it. Do you think there will? Well, I'm asking, like, do you think there will be? You're the one making it. Will there be any sort of mechanic like Soul Heretic parrying stuff in Raids 4?
Maybe. I can't say any of the current proposals have it, I don't think.
Okay.
But I won't be surprised if we iterate and go like, yeah, we like that mechanic.
Okay. That's the kind of
I
stuff
don't,
that
I don't know how well it scales into group.
you're
Just
right.
thinking like if we just took the Soul Harridan mechanic and put it in group, I don't know how well that would work, but it could be parry adjacent, right? The idea of having some sort of takeoff mechanic or interaction in another way.
Yeah. All right. This was not on one of my bullet points, but I was sure to talk about it with you. Is mega rares or even just rewards in general. Now we will be seeing in the next, I don't even know, month or two, a raids 4 proposal of the rewards. Is that correct?
So currently the plan is, and I won't say too much because obviously it's up for CM to really own this, but we're not going to go straight in with like reward proposals like we usually do because we think that this reward set in particular is incredibly like debatable. I don't know how to phrase it really, but like I think it's so difficult that we don't actually know what the right direction is like almost a sense. Like usually we generally know the direction and we're just arguing the details. I don't think we actually are very confident on the direction in the first place because there's a lot of questions that I don't know if I actually talked about on the summit, but like what should the next mega rare be, right? Are we allowed to do another range mega rare that theoretically creeps on Tebow? Like, is that acceptable or is that just a flat out no from the community, right? There's a lot of these types of questions that we don't really have the answers to. And we've had some NDA groups already just chatting and seeing like what people think. We've got some vibes, but we need the wider community discussion really and to like bring everyone along for the ride. So the first like one or two blogs, assuming they go well, maybe more if it doesn't, but we'll be kind of like presenting all of these problems, presenting the space, and trying to figure out like the direction together with the community. And then after that, once we're like confident on the direction, then we'll actually bring some reward.
Okay, that's interesting.
So, while away.
Okay. Are you comfortable sharing any sorts of ideas that have been discussed among the team that you think are cool? Maybe even just blueprints, not even like exact details, but just things that have caught your attention of what you would maybe like to see.
I'll just stick with the one I said on the summit because I think it's very easy for people to get attached to ideas if you like present them really early. But yeah, we presented the idea of like a heavy ranged mega rare, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's an idea there. I think people generally like crossbows. I think people really like ballista. Maybe there's like another version of something like that. And like conceptually, I think that would fit very well for like a mega rare as we know them. So we've explored that space a little bit and come up with a couple of ideas of what maybe that could look like. But again, like it's going to creep on Tebow. It is a fundamental thing. Like as much as it's a heavy rare one, Tebow occupies most of the range space right now. So any range mega rare is going to creep on Tebow. Is that okay? I don't know. What's your gut instinct to that? Like we have a ranged heavy mega rare weapon, and let's say it occupies 40% of the space that Tebow does. That's just like in the air number. Like 4% of all bosses you Tebow on now, you're going to use this new weapon. Does that sound good to you?
I mean, it does to me, mainly because I think it's going to add a little bit more variety. So if you're just like one of those players that, and again, from an Iron Man's perspective, it's like if you have not pulled a Tebow and you're 2,500 deep and you're just like, I hate this and there's new content coming out and maybe I'll try out raids 4, and then you get something that's pretty comparable. I think that's sort of the thing you guys did with the 3-tick wand. Why am I spacing the name of it? The Eye of Ayak. And then the shadow. I mean, it's like you can kind of get away with just having an eye now. I mean, the shadow's better, but the eye has so much utility. And I think that's just a cool way to sort of diversify. I think we are hitting this stage, though, like you're saying. I mean, this is just a conversation that we need to have as with the players of like, are we okay with stuff sort of stepping on mega rares toes, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like
I guess another question.
Yeah.
What if it's 70%? Instead of 4%, it occupies 70% of the space that Tebow.
Then I think there just needs to be some other effect with it. If I can't in this thought experiment change that, I do think there would be an issue there. But that would just
So
be
70% is too much space. Like you'd be sad that Tebow would be missing out. Because
yeah, for sure. And I just don't think there would be a scenario where that would even have to happen, because I mean, a heavy range thing really could have completely different niche. It could be good against, well, again, obviously it'll be good against things that are weak to heavy range, but
like we've already said, right? Like heavy range doesn't stat was really rolled out very aggressively, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
there isn't actually that much diversity there. Obviously, we could come up with some arbitrary effect like Tebow has, right, and just try and make it work.
And you
Good. We've narrowed it down to 40 to 70% of the base it's allowed to steal from Tebow to exist. Progress.
Yeah. It's interesting though. I mean, look, we're getting these seeking arrows. That's a direct buff to the Tebow. I think with some sort of heavy thing. Well, one thing I would love to see personally with a heavy range, if it was a ballista, if that ends up being the thing that comes out, what I would love to see is gem tipped javelins with effects that are separate to the bolt effect.
That's quite a cool idea. I think bolt effects are an absolute mess. And
yeah.
podcast theory wise, we went into that a bit. Adding bolt effects to Blast idea. We could actually do bolt effects right.
Yeah, no, it was like a clean slate to sort of decide what works, what doesn't work, and to really kind of enhance a lot of PVM in some situations. Like, I mean, seriously, if you had a completely clean slate to rework exactly what javelin effects can do, there's so many cool effects you could add. I don't know. I think there is potential there. And even if it was, one of the things I will say though, that this is just my own opinion, but like if we were to go down the route of, a new ballista comes out and then maybe we even have like another ballista comes out that's decent but not a mega rare, it would be so cool if you could attach any gem to any javelin and that was across the board, and then you did the same thing with bolts. So like I can use my runite bolts with my ruby tips and my diamond tips. I hate the fact that it's either dragon or addy. Like, can we just use any bolts on any tips, or at least have some requirements? So like, I don't know, the sapphires or the I don't know, the bronze bolts can't maybe use onyx toward it. Maybe there would have to be
someone doesn't want to kill Vorkath.
Yeah. But no, but like Vorkath, I mean, you got to kill like 1,000 Vorkath to fucking maintain any little bit of consistency with dragon bolts. But
I get it. It's a bit of an oddity, but the game's probably been bounced around annoyingly at this point.
And the thing that's so frustrating is how many rune bolts are shat out by everything. And like, who in the hell is using dragonstone bolts or onyx bolts for any PVM? So
it's usually when you just don't have anything better, right? And you just have a stack of them. You're like, all right, fine, I'll just use them.
Yeah, so it'd be cool.
That's the Iron Man life though, dude. You're using the best you got.
It totally is. What are your thoughts on Seeker arrows coming out to the Iron Man meta? Do you think that's just going to be an absolute the thing you need to grind out for all your arrows going forward? Like, I wonder how much of a sort of time spent ratio of like getting the Seeker arrows versus actually using them will be.
At the end of the day, we just need to get that ratio right. Yeah. I remember us having these discussions a lot before we changed the scythe about like, oh, scythe uses too many blood runes and blah. Like, yeah, the ratio of time like you would spend killing Vorkath to then buying runes to then using the scythe was poor. I'm not going to like argue against that. It was bad. Obviously, it's better a lot these days with all the different changes we've made. And then you have something like Blowpipe, where I think Blowpipe was completely reasonable. I think it was like an hour of Zoro was like 7 to 12 hours of Blowpipe usage.
Yeah.
And then we like nerfed the Blowpipe anyways. He barely even used it anymore, regardless. And obviously the both is just unlimited. Like, there is just a ratio that's just fine. Like, okay, and like is acceptable for an Iron Man. Until you get to like the mega late game Iron Man grind, right? And you're just sick of doing your 7,000th Vorkath kill. Yeah. And you're killing giant moles for nests and like everything else. Like, the Giga and main Iron Man grind does become just absolutely miserable regardless of the ratios, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a big thing to fix. Like, there's so many small things you would do. We've tried to alleviate it over the years, and I do think we have. But yeah, there's some parts of that experience is really. But that's just kind of the Iron Man game mode in reality.
Yeah. Well, listen, you mentioned the Blowpipe. I need to bring this up because this is like what is going on with the rosewood blowpipe? We have, and listen, the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I did start a new account, and one of the routes I wanted to take was an early sailing route and maybe get some of the sailing uniques and stuff and pimp out my gameplay that way. And then and listen, there was just an update this morning that allows you to now get rosewood logs and ironwood logs from salvaging, which wasn't the case before. Like you had to actually get 92 wood cutting to chop a rosewood log beforehand. So just the most insane requirement to build this thing. Plus, not only the rosewood log you need to get the sailing level to go to the island to even get either the seed or the tree
on
to
the potion level.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you need to get a fucking squid beak, which is like a 1 in 1,000 or a 1 in 500. You have to like kill these jumbo squids, and so this thing is like insane. And then when you finally get it, it's just total dog shit, and it only shoots up to Addy. Like, what? I don't understand why this thing. By the way, there's 3 of them, so the rosewood's the best of the 3. This one's only shooting up to Addy. Why? At a bare minimum, it should have shot rune, but I would have even suggested amethyst. It doesn't have to shoot dragon, but at least amethyst. And then the next one down could have just been rune capped, and then the lowest one could have been Addy capped. But the fact that this thing that would be so fun to use, it just ends up being terrible, and the biggest requirement of all time is such a missed opportunity, and I'm so sad about it because, man, using any sort of 2-tick shooty boy is just the funnest thing ever. So...
So again, I'm not like super close to sailing, but I was like aware of these conversations, and I was aware of like where it's being placed and stuff. And I think I completely resonate with the whole. There's a bunch of requirements behind these, which was the goal to have like an alternate route for this kind of like decent range weapon. And obviously you get it, and it's obviously underwhelming. Is the business short of it, and I think. The general problem is, which we can feel free to debate what if we actually think this is a problem or not, but skilling, I don't know, it's hard to say skilling, but at the end of the day, a rosewood log isn't rare. It might got high requirements, but it's not rare, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as much as like, your journey to get that blowpipe would have been really arduous as an Iron Man, once you have those requirements, you can just print blowpipe. But you can eventually just print.
But you can't because the squid beak. Yeah. The squid beak.
So the squid,
yeah.
The squid beak was something that was added a bit later to effectively gate that. Like in development, it was like okay, so the skilling is like they can't just be the logs. That's what regular fletching's like, right? You can just print magic short.
I see.
Like there's nothing there. So the squid beak was then added to be like okay, it's not going to be as simple as like just chop tree. You have to put time investment into killing goods. And I'm not going to argue if like the drop rates are right or anything like that. Maybe it should have been more common. But I think the general like frustration or worry or carefulness is like Zoro is like a fairly like a decent grind and is a decent boss. And you get this like really powerful reward from it. If that was theoretically matched by some guy just AFKing Rosewoods and some guy just AFKing Squid Beaks, does that create like a weird progression / economic problem? Like obviously you're an Iron Man, so there's like other things in consideration, but even from like a main point of view, right? Yeah. Like does this mean like toxic blowpipe is just pointless? Obviously blowpipe costs scales to use as well. This one doesn't. Like it felt like it should be a lot weaker than to kind of like fit, so like it doesn't tread on blowpipe's toes too much. I think a counter argument to that immediately that I thought of is like I don't actually know if blowpipe's even got a value. I think it's still just completely held up in scales. That might have changed, but I don't think it has. But like blowpipe itself, from like a GP point of view, probably wouldn't have gone down much, even if Rosewood blowpipe was incredibly accessible. But I do think the main progression point of view at least still stands. Where if it was like say the Squid Beak didn't exist, or it was really really common, or the blowpipe was just as strong as toxic blowpipe, is there a point in buying a toxic blowpipe? Right? Like, are you always just going to buy the Rosewood one?
Yeah,
scale cost.
I mean,
those are just the things I think would have been considered to the point to lead it to where it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, in my view, it's just whatever is better is gonna be the thing that everyone uses. So if it's dragon boots or prims and you just had the money, I mean, you're just going to be using prims, even though if it's not doing you any
I
benefit.
think that logic applies with best in slot, right? And you could, in some world, argue that blowpipe's still best in slot in some cases. But I think for the vast majority of players, it isn't, right? It's not really a super consistent endgame weapon anymore. So I do think there's a world where people would have just accepted a couple of maxes less and had 0 upkeep.
Yeah, no, that's
like you definitely saw that with blowpipe scythe back in the day, right? Like you didn't really like scythe Cerberus because the DPS increase wasn't really worth the GP cost.
True.
Like you weren't actually making more money by doing so. These days it's a bit of a different story, but the trade-offs do actually matter.
That is
whether it's correct or not in this case, I don't know. But in general,
that's a good point. I think the nerfs to it, or not even nerfs, but just the fact that it didn't get enough power is just basically leaving it to be useless, kind of. And I think at least with the blowpipe, I mean, when you are changing upward with darts, like if you're using mithril darts on a toxic blowpipe, you're doing yourself a massive disservice, because not only are kills taking longer, but you end up using just so much time and money, just and extra mithril darts on using this. Plus the scale cost is the exact same, output, where you may as well just use the hardest hitting darts you possibly can at all times. Dragon darts is, again, assuming you have a little bit of money, but like you should always just be using the highest thing ever. And I just think with
the thing is, we can change these things, right? Yeah. Like at the end of the day, we're a very cautious company when it comes to old school RuneScape, right? And we didn't want to really present 30 rewards on all the different selling things that were pushing the boat in areas we felt uncomfortable with. So it is generally safe for us to be like fairly conservative, and then once the meta's settled, we can make a more educated push, like carefully at certain points. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rosewood Blowpipe gets some love at some point, right? In the future. Yeah.
I would love
it. When, but yeah.
I would love it if it did get some love, because I don't think it would ever trample on any steps. I think it would just be an extra, first of all, a massive side quest to get this thing. I think it's, from an Iron Man's perspective right now, it is just way easier to get a normal blowpipe, it feels like, rather than grinding out all these insanely high woodcutting levels and sailing levels.
You say that, and from a time point of view, you're probably right. But if I'm just watching TV and just chopping trees and fletching and doing salvaging, you could get those requirements debatably 0 time, right? And then start off your account's journey with the blowpipe.
Yeah. But again,
there's a world where that's a thing.
Yeah. With the assumption that the blowpipes are even matched in power, which they're just absolutely not. Yeah. And the fact that they only shoot.
The real insulting factor is that you do all of that, you get it, and then you play the game normally and just pick up a regular blowpipe immediately. And you're like, oh, well, that was a fucking waste of time. Like, if you used it for a decent amount of time and you were like really happy with that, like that probably feels really good. But if you just get something better immediately, then what was the point?
Yeah. Anyway, just it's such a cool, I love the blowpipe idea. I love it. The implementation and the lack of power is just a little bit upsetting. Okay, so I have 2 last questions for you before we finish up, and if you have anything, feel free to let me know. But the last question I'll ask is more about your own career and just the overlook of the game. But this one beforehand is thoughts on like new equipment slots and combined gear, such as the Avernic treads that were recently released. And so the couple questions before I let you answer, which is just what exactly are your guys as the team kind of looking at when combining gear? Do you think Avernic treads was enough? That's sort of like, okay, we did that, we're good, we're probably not going to continue on that trend for other slots. And then how long do you guys imagine Avernic treads maintaining that sort of BIS slot before something more powerful comes out? And then the other thing was just, what are your thoughts on a new ring slot or a new trinket slot or something like that? I know theory-wise, a huge fan of like some sort of trinket slot as well.
You'll probably need to repeat the questions again, but I'll try and tackle the ones I remember.
Okay.
By combining items, do you literally mean like the Avernic treads, where it's like technically 3 different best in slots into one, or do you mean something like Ultor Ring, which is like an attachment scape kind of deal?
Yeah, it's more like the combination of people wanting one slot to dominate everything. So like way back in the day, it was Bearer's Gloves. Bearer's Gloves were the dominant. Now Avernic treads are just good for all 3 styles. That's what I'm kind of talking about.
Yeah, I think in general, combining slots is probably not in our best interests, like as designers. It eliminates a shit ton of reward space. But I do also appreciate, especially in the boots case, they were pretty weak items and they were creating like those weird like 9-way switches and stuff after that it ended up helping fix that problem. So I think it's a tool that we would probably like always consider, like if we need it, but I don't think it's something we actively like want to do. I think like if you exaggerate massively, like if you had like Nature's Reprisal from Leagues 5, where it had like 3 styles, and then we had all of your items just gave every single offensive stat in the game, right? Like mage, range, and melee. I think the game's worse.
Yeah.
As a result of that, right? And I think everyone would agree. Like progression's probably worse, diversity in gear is worse. To just like actual gameplay is worse because gear switching is like a gameplay element. Much as we don't want to have bosses that require you to do it repeatedly, it's still an important gameplay element. And obviously the boots were technically a small step in that direction. Thankfully, I think they fixed more than they created problems. In this case.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, I think we'd probably try and avoid it. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in, I don't know, 5 or 6 years where we've created a bunch more gloves and then we're like, yeah, fuck it, let's combine these and then split up boots again or something.
Yeah.
That's just kind of. There is like a weird UX problem to consider of like, how do you equip your second ring? Like if you click on your Berserker ring and then you clicked on your Light Bearer, does that override the Berserker ring or does that just go into the empty slot? And then if you then clicked on a third ring, like assuming it went into the empty slot and now you have 2 rings equipped, which ring does that overwrite? How do I choose to overwrite one over the other, right? There's a weird UX issue there that maybe I'm overthinking.
No, that's
probably
solvable. That's actually so smart to bring out because that's the thing that nobody will ever think about is like that, those odd specifics.
It's super odd, but conceptually, second ring slot idea is really cool. We talked about it with Theory Wise, and they were talking about like, I think he phrased it as like a active ring slot, like one that has like an effect that rather than just like stats. So you couldn't double up stats, but you'd have a special ring that have effects. And a counterpoint I had to that was, I think having things that have notable or impactful effects to your player character probably should be visible in your character's model, preferably.
Yeah.
So the ring slot might be a bad use case for that. Maybe it should be like a belt slot or something, and we start having a belt game or something like that. But yeah, in general, I'm not opposed to an extra slot. I think it's cool. I think it's extra reward space. It's more extra itemization, etc. I do like the idea of it. It's just got a few questions to answer on
it. Was your belt slot idea completely ironic, or was there a little bit of
It wasn't completely ironic. I think there's a world where we could do a belt slot. It'd be a shit ton of engine work and graphical overhauls and shit and figuring out how it looks. But I think it'd be cool.
The belt slot is like OG sort of new slot because it's such a cool slot. First of all, it's a little weird because of where it would be placed on the character, so it'd look a little weird, obviously. But I think the coolest thing about it is the fact that belts are usually leather, so you can use dragon hide as the leather for these belts, and then on top of that you can just attach a gem to it, and again, more effects. You can have these gems have different effects, and I think, and then you have the basic stuff, which is like a black D hide or a Huey hide belt with an onyx buckle or a zenite buckle or something like that. But then on top of that, beyond that, you'd have new bosses just dropping a brand new WWE belt on the fucking ground and has some crazy effect or something. Who knows? But I unironically would love to see that. Yeah. It would look goofy though. Actually, I don't even know if it would look goofy. Just like a lot of the time you wouldn't even be able to see it, which is fine in my opinion. But
I think we would have to like make you be able to see it. I think that's a be important part of it.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if all player kits and models.
Yeah, I was thinking of like the BCP when the Ferocious gloves first came out, but they weren't what they looked like today. They sort of just were like wristbands, and you couldn't even see that you were wearing anything when wearing a BCP. It's goofy. Okay. Well, cool. That's and I did remember what my other thought was, which was, what are your thoughts? This was an idea that one of my viewers came up with like years back. He was thinking, if we're so into this, cleaning up slots, kind of fixing these awkward 9-way switches, trying to make it more convenient for players. What if there was a way to tether an item to an item, a weapon to a weapon? So basically, it's a main hand to an offhand. That is how you tether things. So it's mainly just tethering for example, a rapier with an Avernic Defender, and that becomes one item slot. And then the only way you untether it, well, technically, I think you could just right-click untether. It would be as simple as that. There could be a way to just have to be at a bank or something to do it. But the whole point is just to make everything a one-click option, because in a lot of situations when you are end game, you do have the luxury of just using a T-bow and a scythe and a shadow, which is just a one-click. So you end up getting benefited from just using these giga weapons that are just two-handed. Yeah.
I think that suggestion is an absolute technical nightmare and will never happen.
That's what I know. Yeah.
I do think a more plausible and slightly worse suggestion is if you could almost like reserve slots in your inventory that like it like you wouldn't be able to shuffle it into it if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Like if you unequip your defender, it wouldn't all of a sudden end up at the bottom of your inventory.
Yes.
If you could say like my offhand's always going to go into this slot or something, I think that would be more realistic and probably have a similar effect.
And it still addresses the main issue, because regardless, like the core of this whole idea is just to make it so there's not that awkward fucking defender that's sitting in the bottom. You're like, where the hell did it go? And then you have two other setups. So like if I go into Toa, it's like some of my styles have two weapons, some of them only have one weapon, and then some of them have a cape, and then some of them don't. If there was like a way to just clean up everything. I mean, Bodhi just in his latest video mentioned everything that everybody also thinks at the end of the monkey room, where you're done with the monkey room going into Baba and you're like, where the fuck is all my gear at? Like, it's just everywhere. I mean, you guys have helped with the fact that everything just gets max hit with you're just using a weapon, so you don't have to go crazy with the switches, but man, it still becomes a mess every time. So that sounds like a technical nightmare, but I mean, it doesn't sound like a technical nightmare. It just sounds like who's going to design that properly, because it sounds somewhat like the bank lock slots, which is
that's exactly where I got the idea from, is like something akin to that. I don't think that'd be too, it's like a right click up on your inventory that lets you just like configure slots, and then you effectively lock slots in your inventory, but maybe you can lock them to like certain items or something, right?
Yeah, that would be okay. What if anybody's listening to this that knows how to that makes plugins for RuneLite? This is something that needs to be endlessly trialed and tested on RuneLite plugins to see what actually ends up working, because I don't have any faith in a one time like somebody comes out with something and it just magically happens to fucking work, because this sounds very complicated to like design. But yeah, I would love to see.
I don't think it's too
well. It sounds complicated to design because there's just infinite amount of ways people rearrange their things, and it's like, how are you going to get? I don't know. I maybe it is
the way I'm almost imagining it like is like you right click it, and then maybe you select your offhand, and then you select a slot in your inventory, and you're like, yeah, every time I unequip, this item gets unequipped, it goes into the slot.
Okay. And then they would make it so if you just equip the defender and then it got replaced with like a mage book or something, when you unequipped it, but what if you switch to your range stuff at that point and then the book is blocked because you had like 3 different styles? You had your mage up top with 8 items, range down below with 7.
It would have to be fairly smart, and it'd probably like you could make it so like you say offhands go in the slot. So instead of saying Dragon Defender goes in the slot, you would say an offhand. And it would effectively just not allow any other item into that slot that didn't come from your offhand. Maybe you even can't pick up an item off the floor because it thinks that slot is effectively it's like reserved for your offhand. I think that'd be possible, and I don't actually think the UX of it would actually.
Interesting. That would be super cool. That sounds like an update that we don't know as players that we'd want it so bad right now, but then when we have it, we wouldn't be able to live without it, I think.
The bank slot feature as well. I remember having that idea in the kitchen talking to Halo. It was
Oh
just
my God, that was
so good.
the thing is, like, we already had something similar. So when I saw that bank slot thing proposed, I was like, we already pretty much have this. It's just kind of awkward. You just got to go in and fill up your whole bank and make sure you don't have any more than one of a particular item that you want closed out. You know, you had to like dump stuff into my looting bag if I had like 3,000
much nicer.
logs. Yeah. So you guys cook a lot of the time with a lot of these things. By the way, I got to say as well, before I ask this last question, the bank interface, I'm actually sort of not upset by. I'm actually happy with it. I think you guys did a great job rearranging that stuff. I mean, it is a little bit of a like muscle memory relearning and stuff, but ultimately,
absolutely right. Change is always scary, but it did have quite a lot of effort put into it from quite a lot of different people.
I'm very happy with it. I was actually loading up OBS because I remember just looking on Reddit and somebody had made a complaint. I'm like, I'm about to ramble on this. This is going to be a bad one. Like, I'm going to start making some issues. And then I actually started messing around with it. I was like, this is fine. Like, what? There's no issue with it. Actually, there is one issue with the bank deposit box. That thing's a mess. Even though it looks clean, it's not actually intuitive because and whenever you're opening a bank, the deposit all and the deposit, like your inventory and your gear, is all right there by that bottom right corner. But when you go to the deposit box, that side is like a vertical column of 1 through X, and then on the other side you got the other 3 deposit all or whatever, and it's like below your gear, and that looks weird. And then the deposit, your inventory is in the middle. It's that needs to be reworked in my opinion, but it looks clean. It just doesn't. I
think it was cleaner probably before the bank rework.
Yeah, I think it was slightly, but it still had issues back then too. Anyway, nothing. I'm just rambling at this point. All right. Final question for you, Modern
You
Arcane.
rambling? Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, it never happens. Where do you see yourself professionally? And also, where do you see the game in the next 10 years? We're looking at like 2036. I mean, do you see yourself still designing raids 7, raids 8? Or will you have, I don't know, like what are your plans professionally? And then I guess, where do you see the game?
So I don't see myself leaving Jagex anytime soon, but 10 years is a long time. Like, I've been here for 6 now, and it doesn't actually feel like 6 at all. Like, it has gone really quickly. Even more so for me, because I think before Jagex, I don't think I had been at a job for long. So it's my first like proper long job as well. And yeah, it's just flown by. I've loved it here. So I don't plan to go anywhere. I am a principal systems designer now, which is kind of the peak of like the reasonable path like within the company. So like, I think technically Kieran was a lead, which is like basically on the same level as principal, and then he got put into associate design director into design director. So like, theoretically, if I was going to follow his path, which I'm not saying I would, that would be a progression path. And that's a bit of like a side. It's like it's a promotion, but it's also a bit of a sidestep as well. Like, his responsibilities changed quite a lot when he did that. He wasn't working on projects directly anymore. And there's a lot of other side steps that could happen as well. Like, maybe you go into like production and things like that. It's a pretty common one. I don't have any desires to take any of these side steps. I really like working on projects. I don't really want to stop programming. I don't want to stop designing content. I like being quite close to the development team and working on these things. So that does mean there's a very questionable, like, I don't really know what the progression path looks like now. Maybe I just stay as a principal going forward, right?
Yeah.
Personally, I'm fine with that right now. I've got enough on my plate and enough stress of stuff to handle. So I don't really want any more. But you never know. Like, maybe a couple of years goes by and things change, opinions change, positions open. No idea. So professionally, no idea, really. I'll probably just be a principal going forward until shit happens, really. In terms of the game, I have no idea. 10 years are really long. I feel like the game has evolved so much in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it can evolve to the same level in 10 years, but I still think it's going to evolve a significant amount.
Do you have any predictions? Like, if I were to ask, one prediction that you would make in 10 years that maybe could be seen as like Oh, okay. Like that's a hot take or something of what you would see the game. Like, is there something that we are all missing that you could actually see the game looking like in 10 years? Just something radically different that we're just like, oh, geez.
Trying to think of something that isn't effectively just me leaking the next few years' plans. Because like we do have lots of ideas of like stuff that is somewhat radically different, which we hope players are excited about. And obviously saying that now would be a bit of a spoiler.
Yeah.
Like this is something I talked about in the Theory Wise podcast, but we still don't really know if it's even possible or if it'll happen or what it even looks like. But I really want to investigate like a roguelike mode within Old School RuneScape. And we do like technically even the Colosseum has like roguelike elements, like with the modifier system and replayability. But I want like a true roguelike mode where you start from nothing, you get your gear throughout the run, you get modifiers like league modifiers and things like that. There's new bosses and stuff, and you just need to push it deep as possible, and it really pushes like your knowledge of the game and understanding of the roguelike systems to actually get deep. There's a lot of failing to get there, but yeah, there's a lot of weird design problems that need to be figured out for that to actually come to fruition. So I don't know where they'll end up going, but I love roguelikes. I'd love to see a roguelike in RuneScape. I think it can work.
Yeah. I mean, leagues I think was a huge radical idea. I mean, everyone was like, what are we doing here? This is old school RuneScape. Stop with this nonsense. And then it's like the most popular thing that's ever come into the game.
Exactly.
So yeah. Do you so with that, I'm assuming that would just be like a temporary thing. Do you have any desire to see a new permanent game mode in the game in the next several years?
I think if a roguelike does exist, it's going to be a lot easier to fit in the game as a game mode rather than a main thing. But I would like to see if there's a way of fitting it in the main.
Yeah.
I just think it's very, very difficult. In terms of a new main game mode, I think the obvious ones are there, right? Like hardcore main, like fresh economies. Maybe like nightmare mode. Like I had my own version of nightmare mode. Which is, imagine if every quest boss was like actually hard. Like I know, like when you make a new account, like getting Jad is like a really cool experience, but like most early quest bosses are an absolute pusher. Right?
Yeah.
What about fighting giant rock? Like you were fighting for your life. Like, I think that would be cool. Like as like an alternate thing, but yeah, maybe a bit too wacky.
It's not even like wacky. It's just like so much effort to be put into something that can ultimately, I don't know, maybe even just feel a little jarring to go up against. I don't even know.
Yeah, I'd like to think it would like. There's a version of nightmare mode where like you actually just make every quest boss like a challenge, for like a proper hard challenge. There's also a version of just reworking all the quest bosses to have like appropriate mechanics and intensity for the level of the quest that they are.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our later quests have like proper bosses with proper mechanics, but a lot of the early game quests effectively are just big monsters, which does actually make it quite jarring when you want to learn PVM. Like, I think I read a Reddit post recently of someone saying that they completed a bunch of quests and they thought themselves very competent, and then they went and did Zora and just got the shit pushed out. It's like it's just so jarring to them that they thought they could do that. I think after like Regicide, you can do it, right?
Yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, mental.
Yeah, I mean, Zora, there's just no preparation. There's no way any player is going to go in there and get it the first time unless they have max gear. I mean, and you're just brute forcing everything. But yeah, that's just...
Probably not even then.
It is such a mess to understand where you're going. It's just a memory game, but it's cool. Yeah. Like, I still like the flow of it.
Great fun. I mean, there's like Bronze Man mode, there's like Tile Man mode, like there's all these different things that have been popularized over the years. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those get popular enough for us to like try them out or something, right?
Yeah, I know there's some outspoken people that are like, no new game modes, it's already cluttered, the high scores are fucked and whatever else they used to be. I just don't have that problem. I'm like, I love official things, and I think most players love it when things are official. They don't want to have to perform all the limitations just by themselves, by their own like will, like I'm just not gonna do this, but there's no actual reward and there's no actual like signature that people are recognizing me as. I just feel like there's something really important about the officialness of it, and I think
I kind of sit on both sides here. I'm actually quite minimalist with a lot of stuff. Like I prefer things to be like really simple and clean and like elegant rather than like cluttered and a bunch of stuff. And I value that a lot.
Yeah.
So I do kind of resonate with that opinion that you said of like too many and things like that. However, with permanent game modes in particular, I think there's so much value. Like RuneScape's just a fucking amazing game that just keeps getting better. And like game modes are just such a good reason and a good excuse to just do it all again. And like very much anecdotally here, but like I've got a maxed Iron Man account. I made like 3 different GIM accounts or something like that. I've now made another Iron Man account like late last year that I've been on and off on, but like I feel like I need like a different experience. It's not just a regular Iron Man. Like I want something else. And it like very, very, very biased, but like I think a new main game mode would give me a very strong reason to go again.
Yes.
Like do it all again.
Yeah. No,
and that competition, the rush of like everyone trying it out and doing stuff, I think is really exciting. And I feel like I've done regular Iron Man to death now.
Yeah, that is exactly how I feel. And I'm like, I feel like me talking about this feels so selfish because it's like it is exactly what I want.
We're all selfish in reality, right? Everyone's got their own agenda.
Yeah, but I also feel like there would be, this is not just about me, it's like I think there's a lot of players that would like to see something new, and they might not even recognize how much they would want it. I think that was sort of the case with like all the new modes, Iron Man Ultimate Hardcore that came out. It's like, yeah, there was excitement about it, but it's not like everybody was demanding it come out. It just came out and everyone's like, holy shit, this is fun as hell. Like hardcore is still super huge, but man, if we had, and I would, selfishly, I mean, I'd love the idea of like a separate server hardcore main. I think in the main game hardcore main still sounds interesting. I probably wouldn't get involved in it, but I would love to watch people do it. The thing though is
fresh economy would be very interesting.
Oh, yeah, it would be so good. But even beyond that, I think there is something just nice about a mode that's non-hardcore, that is different than Iron Man, but still has some restrictions that are tight and stuff. I just, oh man, I want something new that's permanent, that I can sink and compete in and feel like I'm at the cutting edge of everybody else and stuff.
Go back and do clues again.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. See, look at me. I'm evolving. I didn't talk once about clues or Gnome Cube. Well, I did talk about the bucket of milk, so I guess that counts for something. But Mod Arcane, I love talking with you. I love that you're still working at Jagex, just making moves, and you're just such a valuable asset to the team and to the community. So thank you so much for all that you've been doing and all the work that you've been doing behind the scenes. I mean, I'm sure the amount of effort you're putting into these bosses is just a lot, and it probably takes a lot out of you. And this is the stuff that the community does not see. I mean, we're just like, when's our next raid coming out? We don't care what, like how much energy and time and resources and money it takes. It's just like, just give us it. And we're pretty spoiled.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your dedication to the game as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy for me. I've been loving the game, and it's a huge part for maintaining such a good game that you guys are cautious about not changing things drastically. I think that's even though there's some selfish things that I would love to get changed rapidly, the overall stance that you guys hold of like changing things slowly with time, with the analytics, with the data to back it up, is the way forward. So yeah, keep it up. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening as well. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.